Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Big Bass Podcast, the fishing show where size matters. My name is Ken Duke.
And I'm Terry Battisti, our engineer, and the brains behind all of this is Nathan Benson, who's in the shadows, and hopefully we'll get him to come out of the shadows today. He's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, wouldn't you say, Ken?
I would say he's kind of a shadowy, lurking character. I don't know
Yeah.
that you really need a good look at Nathan. He's kind of like Bigfoot. There are infrequent and unreliable sightings of Nathan.
He's probably got his shirt off and Cheeto dust all over his belly too, so I don't know.
Oh, he's going to cut your mic any second now.
I'm sure
and
he
this
will.
is going to wind
I'm
up being a
sure
solo show with just me. I can feel it. I feel it now. So yeah, we're live tonight, as everyone no doubt knows by now, and we are chugging along here. Would love to get questions from everybody. There's a lot of ways to get them to us, but I guess probably the easiest way is to put them in that chat box on YouTube. Nathan is going to be feeding those questions to us as we go throughout the show, and we'll be looking for those questions from him. You can text me anyway. You can probably text Terry too. My cell number is 407-574-1898. So feel free to text me. A lot of ways to get stuff to us, but we would love to hear from you. We want to talk to you. We got a lot of good stuff to talk about. We want to get your tips. We want to get your ideas. How do we make this thing better? How do we make the Big Bass Podcast more popular? We seem to have stalled out on a lot of things, so growing the show wise. So we want to talk about that a little bit. But first, I want to say, Terry, it is an absolute joy to do this show with you and Nathan. And
I muted him a long time
Terry's
ago.
been muted. Oh, finally, I have the show all to myself.
The voice of reason, right? No, I just said that I agree with you, Ken. I mean, anybody would want to do a show with me and Nathan. I mean, it just
exactly so true.
It goes without saying.
Hey, we just had a message here from Mike Davis. He says, "Good evening, fellow anglers." Mike, of course, was on a show with us recently. We did a show on Anthony Denny and the Mississippi State record largemouth bass. And Mike is a longtime buddy of mine, not quite as long a time buddy with Terry, but also a great friend of Terry Battisti. And Terry, you don't know this, but earlier this evening, less than 2 hours ago, I got a FaceTime call from Mike Davis. And ordinarily, I would never take such a thing as a FaceTime call from Mike Davis because, Mike's not a lot to look at. But I kind of had a heads up. He told me next time he hooked into a really big bass, he was going to FaceTime call me. And sure enough, he had a big fish on the line, hooked on a jig.
On the line? He's
on the line.
Reeling it in?
He's reeling it in.
And he's making a phone call.
He put it in the boat. And that fish weighed about 8.5. Looked every bit of 8.5. And I think you know this. Just a few weeks ago, Mike was in the boat with his son and Wyatt, and they were fishing. And Mike caught his personal best while they were listening to the episode that Mike was on. Wyatt was listening to that episode for the first time.
Such a narcissist.
He is. Mike can't get enough Mike, I think is the message.
Exactly.
And Mike caught
He's probably going to his son. Oh, now you got to listen to this part here. It's coming up. It'll be up in a couple seconds. You got to
listen to how articulate and suave I am here.
Exactly.
But Mike caught a 13.5 while they were listening to the Big Bass Podcast, and they were on the water on the same small private lake that he was fishing earlier this evening when he caught an 8.5. He was also listening to the show earlier this year when he caught one over 11. So, folks, look out for Mike.
Maybe
Davis.
that's the pattern.
Yeah,
maybe that's
exactly.
the pattern.
I think that if you hope to catch a really good fish, you really don't have much of a chance unless you are listening to, subscribing to, or otherwise participating with the Big Bass Podcast. Otherwise, really, honestly, you don't have a prayer.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
So we got that. We
Oh,
have you
jeez.
receiving threatening texts before the
Yeah,
show.
yeah,
Uh,
and I got to pin that one on Mr. Davis too. I mean, who the hell
boy.
sends livestock in a USPS box to one of the dance family members? It wasn't me.
Apparently you do, Terry Batista, because
It had my return
it had
address
your
on
return
it.
address on it. And therefore, I think you're the prime suspect here. You know, they say,
Oh,
don't overlook the obvious answer.
yeah.
The shortest answer, the most obvious answer is
Yeah,
usually
the only
correct.
place I know where to get chicken is at the supermarket. Come on.
I don't know. Those chicks looked alive and well to me. And yeah, apparently, folks, Terry Battisti sending livestock to members of the Bill Dance family, and I think that's just wrong. And I don't encourage that. I would never
At least it
sanction
wasn't
such
a
a thing.
cow.
Oh my God, are you saying you're going to send Pamela a cow next? That's beyond the
No,
pale.
I did
Terry,
not.
if you look behind you, you'll see the line. You have crossed it, sir. You have crossed it.
Oh my gosh.
I doubt
Unbelievable.
I doubt that you're any longer in good stead with the Dance family after such a stunt as that.
Oh man. Anyway, welcome everybody.
Ken
We're happy to
McCarthy,
have you
thank you.
here. Yep. Frank Doucette, thank you guys. Yeah, it's you know, we're just happy to be here and happy that you're here with us. So, what are we going to
Yeah,
talk
Bob.
about tonight?
I don't know. I thought we'd talk about Big Bass a little bit. Bob Stevens says, who caught a 13.5? Well, that was Mike Davis. Bob, if you saw our show about the Mississippi State record largemouth caught by Anthony Denny about 32 years ago, our guest on that program was a Mississippi Big Bass expert named Mike Davis, longtime friend of ours. And Mike knows more about that bass probably than anybody. And he caught a 13-pound, 5-ounce fish while he was listening to the Big Bass podcast and fishing with his son. Can you put me on so I can catch a new PB? Asked Matthew Pollock.
Matthew Pollock from Spokane, Washington. Welcome from Spokane. I used to live about 90 miles south of there. I went to the University of Idaho, so I know I've been to Spokane 100 times. Fished Coeur d'Alene and all those northern Idaho lakes a lot, and even Rock Lake in eastern Washington. So, welcome, Matthew. What else we got going on over here?
Well, you said
you're drinking Tin Cup.
No, it's Lagavulin.
What?
Good. Islay single malt Scotch. Lagavulin is the name in it. If you like chewing on dirty grass, that's what it tastes like. It's my favorite.
Is that the one that Ron from Parks and Rec drank? That's what he drank?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
he's a part owner.
Okay. I'm drinking water, folks. I'm drinking water, the hard stuff. Bass juice. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I have in my 73 Classic Cup. Water.
I'm just drinking the earth juice right here.
Stein, I should say.
I've had Tin Cup. It's good stuff. You know, if anybody wants to contribute some Buffalo Trace, you can at least sponsor my portion of the show. I don't know if that would get you also Terry's portion of the show or Nathan's
Trace
portion of the show, but I do like Buffalo Trace, so you can send that. Insider information here. We did our show about the record-keeping organizations like IGFA, Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame, stuff like that, the various state organizations that keep records. That was one of our early episodes, and I was inebriated for that one, in case anybody wants to know. That evening we recorded 2 episodes, I think, and I was trying to keep up with
At the end of
Battisti.
the first episode, he was smashed, and he was on autopilot for the entire second show.
For what it's worth, I'm just trying to keep up with my friend Terry Battisti, who's knocking him down fast. He's putting away a considerable amount of adult beverages while we record, and and I was just trying to.
And you had like 4.
I was just trying to keep up.
But you sissy it up. You put ice in it. I mean,
ice and water.
Real men drink it neat.
Yeah, I don't like it that way. I'm not.
Anyway, got.
That's the last time I had a drink.
Bob Stevens, are you really in Kuwait right now? I would not really want to be in that part of the world right now.
Not a comfortable place.
No, no.
That is
Uh,
not a. Oh, Frank Doucette. That's harsh, Frank.
what did Frank say?
I don't know if he's replying to
just
Bob being in Kuwait, but anyway, we'll see. I got to go trace him back.
Bobby
here.
Balsa, go to sleep.
Somebody said, who was it who said he likes my cup? Oh, Darius says he likes my cup. Yeah, we got the "Don't Tread on Me," flag on here, and it's also kind of a. For what it's worth, I don't want to make this a political show, but for what it's worth, that's kind of a Ron DeSantis thing. I'm a pretty big Ron DeSantis fan. I live here in Florida. I'm not part of the.
Andrew Lovelace says that we should get KVD on the podcast.
Has KVD ever caught a big bass? His brother has. His brother had the state record.
He's got the freaking Livingston Lake record.
No, he doesn't.
He also suggested Jed Dickerson.
Yeah, Dickerson we'd love to get on.
Dickerson
Jed,
would be a good one.
Call us Jed Dickerson. And Bubba.
But
Buddha.
I thought he. Oh no! Wait. So that 11 was a record of some sort.
It was the lake record. Not Livingston. That was. Bear with me. I'll tell you exactly what that was.
Louisville.
Was it Louisville? It might have been Louisville.
I think it was Louisville.
It might have been Louisville.
Yeah, I knew it started with an L.
I covered that event. It was an Elite 50 event, and it was a lake record for about a week.
Oh, okay.
And it was like 11:13. I want to say it was 11:13, something like that. He caught it on a shaky head. It was a big fish. But if you're talking big fish, then you got to talk the other Van Dam. You got to talk. You got to talk Kevin's brother. Because Kevin's brother, Randy, has or had the 9 even Ohio State smallmouth record.
Oh, that's right. It was Ohio. It wasn't Michigan.
Not Michigan, no. My mistake, Frank. My mistake, Frank. I was not talking about that then. I got that wrong. So my apologies, Frank. Did not mean to mischaracterize your statement. But really appreciate y'all joining us. And thanks to everybody who has reached out. There's Brendan Brown from Brown Bait Company. I should be wearing my the Brown Bait Company t-shirt like you were the other day, but I screwed up. And instead, I'm wearing a shirt from my brother-in-law in Japan. It's got some sort of Japanese anime thing on it. And talks about
By the time we leave this country, it'll be a place where you can eat as much as you want every single day. They write the craziest stuff, not just on their shirts, but on their tackle, their packaging of their tackle. It's yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I cannot in polite company say what I have seen in the windows of some Japanese tackle companies when I went to visit that fine country where my wife is from. They show a lack of understanding of the English language in some cases.
Yeah. They got so Patrick Veltman caught a 5-pound fish at Headwaters on the St. John's on a pop-bar today at 7 p.m. this evening. So cool. Awesome catch, Pat. And Brown Bait Company, Brendan, thank you. I try to groom my beard at least, maybe once every month or something. Other than that, it just grows. And
I think it's a lot. I think it's quarterly. I think it's quarterly that you take care of that.
Holy crap, Darius! Thank you.
Darius King, thank you, man. That's way too kind of you. And
we haven't said anything, Darius. How's it insane?
You're way too kind to us, man. We appreciate that. Yeah, we're babbling. We're babbling. We do want to get into format of the show and things like that a little bit, but we'll wait for that. So Paul Ireri says the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame spelled Mike Iaconelli's first and last names wrong on his plaque. Now, the second part of your note there, Paul, I did know, and that is that Mike was supposed to be presented and introduced to the hall for his induction by our friend Mark Jeffries, the creator of Bass Talk Live, and truly
Bass
one of the
Zone,
great Bass Zone. Yeah, truly one of the great media people, and a guy who should be in the Bass Fishing Hall of
an
Fame already.
innovator. He
An absolute innovator.
completely changed the way live bass fishing. He was the guy that started it, for crying out loud.
Absolutely the
So
guy who started it. I was there watching Mark do it. I was sitting next to Mark. Mark's been a friend of mine for a long time, and we talked about his introduction to Mike Iaconelli earlier that same evening, and uh, I was conferring with him about his notes, and we were talking about some facts and working up that presentation that he was going to give, and I'm sitting right next to him while these people are introducing Mike Iaconelli, and they skipped right over him. I don't know that Mark has gotten to the bottom of it yet, whether it was just an oversight or what went wrong there, but Mark did not have the opportunity to introduce Mike Iaconelli, longtime buddy of his. You know, Mark Jeffries is the guy who set up Ike Live, who set up Bass University, who got them the tech they needed and helped them put that whole studio and everything together, and who trained Brian the Carpenter, our buddy Brian Stockel, to produce that show. You know, without Mark Jeffries, you got to wonder if there would be an Ike Live, if there would be a Bass University, because he was that instrumental in setting it up, and he didn't get to make the presentation. I'm sitting right next to him, and I can tell you, we were shocked, and he was enormously disappointed that he did not get to introduce Mike.
yeah,
A real shame.
yeah, and I haven't heard how that got screwed up. You know, it's probably something I could probably dig into. But
Well, you know, you're part of the
yeah,
Hall of Fame, so it's your fault. I blame you.
I'm not part of it.
Well, you
I'm
are
not
part of it.
I'm not on a board. You know, if they asked me, I would join.
Do you have
But
reciprocal links from Bass Archives to the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame?
that's about it. That's about all we have. You know, so
That makes you equally culpable.
oh my God, I just showed up at a dinner.
Matthew Pollock, the 20 Feet Deep series on Bass Zone is the best. I agree. Those are the finest documentaries in the sport of bass fishing, hands down. And the Robert Hamilton one is a personal favorite, about Robert Hamilton Jr. meeting the devil after he won his Bassmaster Classic in 1992. Terry, I am so privileged. I am in most of those 20 Feet Deep episodes. Mark has often reached out to me and asked me to give some sort of historical perspective on the topics he's discussing, and I have really enjoyed being a part of those. And yes, Tom Mix, Mark was a guest on the show he started, Bass Talk Live, this morning with Matt Pangrack, our buddy, and Ike was on there, and they discussed it. You know, I haven't had a chance to listen to that show yet, but I definitely want
Neither have
to
I.
and see
Yeah.
what they had to say about it. I'll tell you what, Terry Battisti, I was honored at the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame induction ceremony, because Mike actually mentioned Mark Jeffries and myself as members of the media that he had worked with through the years. So that was a big deal to me, just to be mentioned by Mike.
Oh, it's huge. Absolutely. Oh, and let's correct this, Ken. Actually, Rick Clunn was the inaugural induction in 2001 into the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. He did not get his jacket because for years they didn't have jackets. And they just started the jacket thing a few years ago. And this is the first time that he has been able to get to a Hall of Fame dinner. And therefore they gave him his jacket that night. So yeah, no, he wasn't inducted this year. He was in the original class back in 2001.
Yeah, Rick was one of the first guys they honored, along with Bill Dance, Ray Scott, Johnny Morse, people
Yeah.
like that.
Yep.
They've made a lot of missteps through the years, some of which they will never be able to correct. But I was impressed by the event. I enjoyed it. It was great to see Rick Clunn, great to see Bill Dance, great to see David Fritz, great to see obviously Mike Iaconelli, great to see a lot of these folks. It was a blast. I enjoyed it. Great to see Terry Battisti, for God's sake.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
I
an
was
honor.
driving Miss Daisy the whole time that we were there.
It was an honor. It was an honor to have appetizer chicken with Terry Battisti.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was like, hey, are you hungry? Yeah, I'm hungry because we hadn't eaten. We'd both flown in early that morning, hadn't had a chance to eat. So literally what, an hour and a half before the banquet, we went to Culver's Chicken, which by the way, if you live in the Midwest, really good chicken.
It was Cane's.
Cane's, that's right. It was Cane's. Good memory. And Ken ordered like 15 chicken fingers and demolished them. I had 4.
Lightweight.
Miss Pamela, I don't know what to say about the chicks, ma'am.
Don't try to make up with her now. No, I can tell she is pissed at you. I would be too.
I am gonna get Mr. Davis. Little Boom's
What?
gonna go little
What?
Boom's gonna go Big Boom. I
Why would
guarantee you it was Davis.
What?
Terry can grow a beard if he can't do anything else. That's a yeah. It doesn't
Thank you,
take
Clay.
any effort. That's the whole deal.
Thank you, Clay. You're
my
on to
gosh.
something there. And Pamela, I'm so sorry about what Terry has done to you to ruin your birthday. I'm so sorry.
Now, South Jersey, you've got a freaking good idea here. Just for men, maybe we should give them a call. And maybe we could call Rogaine for you, Ken.
Okay, if it's just for men, can Terry use it?
And we hear Nathan in the
I
background.
heard Nathan laughing.
Ken's
That's pretty
giggling.
good. I got a Nathan laugh. For what it's worth, folks, I've known Nathan for 20 years, and Nathan has a couple of laughs. You heard the more normal one there. If you really get Nathan, you can make him snort or even giggle like about an 8-year-old girl, and that's the coveted Nathan laugh
I don't think we're allowed to say that
I
anymore,
aim
Ken.
for. Okay, whatever. Nathan and I
goodness gracious.
are scheduled for a strategy dinner in a couple of nights, so I'll try to get the
At a Japanese restaurant that's owned by the Chinese, where they
maybe.
serve crab rangoon.
Maybe.
I mean, holy Oliver
what is your
Nye,
point?
holy mackerel.
Oliver Nye, terrible chicken. What are you
This
talking
is
about,
awesome.
man? This is good stuff. Cane's is pretty
Cane's
good.
is
I
really
enjoyed
good.
it.
It was juicy, good pieces. Yeah, good breading. Yeah.
Now there's a big bass master in Oliver Nye, and oh wow,
Absolutely.
there's a shot. I like that.
Oh
one.
no, dude.
You can't handle the ketchup.
I eat jalapenos by the can.
He has to
I go through at
water
least-
down the ketchup, Oliver. It's sad, really. Just sad. I don't know what to say about it except he's got to water it down. add a
Holy
little sugar.
mackerel. Why all the hate?
Oliver
all
Nye,
I'm feeling is hate.
Let's talk about Oliver Nye for just a moment. Oliver Nye has the distinction of having caught one of the biggest bass ever cast to catch, on video.
I guess the second biggest on video.
Yeah, I guess Butch
Butch
Brown
is-
is the biggest.
Butch's is biggest, and it's Oliver's got to have because it's 1795 or 1797. He caught it at, I don't know if I'm supposed to say, Don Pedro, and God, he got that in what 2005 or 2006, and it's a great video.
We say Oliver's got number 2, but that just means that some of these George Perry apologists will pop up with a video any day now claiming that they have the 22-4 cast to catch, just like they've claimed that a lot of the pictures that have popped up through the decades are actually George Perry or George Perry's fish, which are all enormous, massive, fantastic
3
lies.
pounders.
All of
3
them
pounders.
lies, and more lies about George Perry. The biggest
goodness
fraud
gracious.
in the world of big bass is George Washington Perry, folks. One of these days we'll dig deep and expose him for the fraud that he was. 1740 at the moment of capture. Weight on the scale on the video.
Okay, all right. Still,
Oliver, hey,
it's a 17.
tip to
It's
Oliver
a
Nye.
17. We gotta
Tip
have
to-
Oliver on the show.
Tip to our friend Oliver Nye. Oliver, when somebody says your fish was bigger than it really was, let it go. Let it go. Mike Davis says Oliver would be a great guest. Of course he would. He would overshadow us. He would take over the program, and then you'd never see me or Terry ever again.
No, it was.
So, We got to guard against that.
The Big Bass Dreams podcast. Well, he's already got that, so.
Yeah, there you go. Wait till I catch a 20 out of Isabella, says Reb 51 and 66. Going to shock the world. That would shock the world.
Now, not really. I mean, I think the record out there is 18 or 19 pounds at Isabella. And the thing about Isabella is that it has the Kern River running through it. So it may be in the foothills of the western Sierras, but the water stays really cold due to the fact that the Kern River's feeding it at 55 degrees year round. And there's a prime example. You could be in the South Fork of the lake where there's really no water coming in, and you go down 5 or 6 feet, and it's still 75 to 80 degrees in the summertime. But if you're in the North Fork or towards the dam, you go down 5 feet and it's 60.
Well, the biggest bass reputably reported out of Isabella came in 1984. It was 18 pounds, 15 ounces by Keith Harper.
Yep.
And they've got a few over 18. But Isabella, and the difference between a 20 and a 18, 15 is really, that's a trout. But when you're looking at the long annals of big bass history, the difference between an 18, 15 and a 20 or a 21 is really quite a lot.
It's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
But
so,
what I'm saying, Isabella is out. It is way out there. It is 100 miles or 180 miles actually from LA proper. So it's not one of these lakes that you can just drive to like Castaic, which is 20 minutes away from downtown LA. So it does not get the pressure that a Castaic or a Casitas ever thought of getting. It's a 7,000 acre lake, if I'm not mistaken. So it's pretty big. It fluctuates a lot, but yeah, it could produce a 20. Could it produce a world record? I don't know. The other thing is that it's got trout in it all the time because of the Kern River.
That makes a big difference, obviously, but do they still have the genetics, or have the genetics been too watered down?
I don't know.
Terry, I got to spend a fair amount of time with our buddy Stephen Barden when I was at the ASA Summit last week, and he's kind enough to offer to come back on the show again, so we'll have to get him. We've had Stephen on for 2 regular shows as well as a live show, and I know that the folks watching and listening really enjoyed those.
Yeah. Keith, can you cover the Great Lake Buck Perry sometimes?
Well, I think Keith, I don't know.
Dig.
Is that a dig?
I think the late great. I think it is.
No, Buck Perry.
Be Don
He's talking about Buck.
Oh, Buck. Oh.
He's talking about that spoon plug guy. The first man who said, when we're casting at the bank, 90% of the fish are behind us. So I'm with him on late great. Absolutely late great. But, Buck Perry, as legendary as he was for his spoon plugging technique and speed trolling and all that good stuff, not really known as a big bass guy. And that's why we haven't covered Buck Perry, nor have we really considered covering Buck Perry per se.
But yet I know that he had a 14 and he had a 12 to his name. Of course, when you're trolling, you're liable to catch anything, He didn't target big fish. He targeted good fish, right? I mean, that was what he
targeted fish. One of Buck Perry's big things, as you know so well, Terry, was to go into a lake that was supposedly fished out and just whack them and bring in these strings of fish that dazzled the locals and made them think, oh my God, I didn't have any idea there were fish like that in this lake. He'd go to municipal waters in places like Chicago and just destroy them. But because Perry was not an angler dedicated to big bass, that's why we really haven't thought about him. Now, Don Dixon, wasn't that the guy who ran Perry's spoon plug store for many years?
He either ran his spoon plug store. I know that he was doing a lot of his his own stuff with spoon plug and structure fishing, and mainly the Perry trolling techniques, right? And he's still alive, and he's got a YouTube channel, and he has a lot of the old Buck Perry videos on his channel, if I'm not mistaken. That might be another person. But yeah, he's still around, and he's still, doing his thing. It's pretty amazing.
That sounds like fodder for Bass Archives.
Could be.
Maybe
Yeah,
more so than the Big Bass
and
podcast.
I've thought of that, quite a bit when Lewis gets done with the opens and refiring up the Big Bass, or excuse me, the Bass Fishing Archives.
Of course, you're talking about Louis Minetti.
Louis Minetti, yeah.
Who qualified for the Bassmaster Classic earlier this year through the college ranks. Unfortunately, he did not go to the University of Georgia, but he's still a fine person and a fine angler. He just has no chance of being the alum of a school that's going to win a national championship. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only bad thing I can say about Lou Minetti, who's a wonderful young man.
And he got a free ride on the Opens this year. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out for him. But he's a good kid. He's a good fisherman. I mean, if you remember, he qualified through the college ranks, like Ken said, in I think it was a 92 or a 93 Ranger that had no electronics on it. It had no upholstery on any of the seats. I mean, he was bare bones, just out there fishing. And he won the college ranks against some kids that, were fishing the top of the line, boat, rods, reels, the whole 9 yards. And, it's a bummer that he didn't do better this year. So,
hey, Keith Fuson, when he's not talking about Buck Perry and confusing you, thinking he's talking about George Perry, he's actually asking, what is the best all-around bass state in America? He says Minnesota. No, Keith. The answer, of course, is Florida. Florida is the best all-around bass state in America, because Florida is where the giants all originate from. Actually, if I had to be totally objective, I think you could actually, and I hate to say this, I think you could make an argument for Alabama, because Alabama has pretty much everything, or even Georgia, because they have pretty much everything except Guadalupe's. And oh my gosh, Terry, I forgot to mention this to you. Talked with Stephen Barden, who was pretty much coming fresh out of the AFS conference, the American Fisheries Society conference. And guess what happened at the AFS conference?
They discovered another species of bass and announced it.
Not exactly, although now there are 19 black bass species. 19.
That's crazy.
But here's what they did. They renamed some. Hear me out.
What did they rename the spot? Because there's been talk about that for years.
Oh, well, 17 of them are spots now. Okay, so don't sweat the spot. They renamed the largemouth. They renamed Micropterus negricanus or something like that. The
northern
largemouth
bass.
Yes.
The northern largemouth?
Yes. The
Why?
northern largemouth, which has for time immemorial been known as Micropterus salmoides, is now Micropterus negricantus or something like that. Negra something. And the Florida bass is now Micropterus salmoides. I am not making this up.
What was the reason?
Well, obviously, I guess they feel like this more accurately names and classifies these fish and somehow avoids confusion moving forward. But the problem is everything written earlier this year with the wrong scientific names, now, I'm sorry, not the wrong scientific names, but the formerly accurate scientific names is now inaccurate. And people are going to have to go back, the people who are referencing scholarly things, and they're going to have to be very careful about what they're talking about. And they're going to have to use 2023, but not just 2023, but like September 2023 as their ground zero for the use of a lot of these names. It's going to be highly confusing for a while.
Yeah, this is just scientists run amok. I mean, it's stupid. I mean, if there was some scientific reason for doing it, then I could understand it. But it just sounds like it was done because they wanted to do it. I mean, if you can give me a scientific reason for changing the name, then I'll go for it. But if they just changed them because they had budget money left over, that's BS as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I'm about to order the book that is coming out of that conference, which talks about the names and some of the rationale for some of the changes. So hopefully I'll have some better insight. Meanwhile, we do need to get Stephen Barden back on. He's going to write an article for Fish Insider magazine about these changes and what they mean and why they were done. But yeah, it's confusing now, and it's messy and goofy and ugly, and but it's always kind of been the case, when the black bass and all the many subspecies were initially discovered hundreds of years ago and named by the French and named by these people and that people. Um, Almost all of the names have been screwed up to some degree. Micropterus, which still persists within the black bass species, is kind of a misnomer. It means small fin. And a lot of people believe that when they were naming it, based on the specimen they had at the moment in front of them
In France, right?
had a broken dorsal.
Yeah,
Dolomieu, which is Micropterus dolomieu, is
the smallmouth.
is the smallmouth bass, and it was named for a French guy by a French guy. So there's been a lot of confusion for hundreds of
Yeah.
years about these fish, and it's good to see nothing
I
changes.
say we need to revolt. Start protesting.
I'm right there with you. I'll be right behind you.
Clay Williamson, you're absolutely right. All literature is going to be screwed up from here on out. How do you go back and take out of print what's already been put in print?
But that was a problem before. When Henshaw wrote Book of the Black Bass and more about the black bass, the names he used haven't been used in a long time, but things eventually got straightened out. Mullet Fingers says we're going to need Twilight inspired Team Terry and Team Ken shirts next merch drop. Amen,
Why
brother.
not?
I think that would be too cool. I want to monitor sales, see how I'm doing next to the big dog, Mr. Batiste.
Hey, Nathan, there was, I think it was 3 comments below a comment that we didn't address, and
Was it this one?
who's caught the most 10-pound bass? Yeah. Goodness gracious, what was that guy's name? Brasher?
LJ Brasher out of Alabama. I know that's who you're talking about. He passed away in the late 90s. He got a lot of ink from our friend John Phillips, who is no doubt America's most prolific outdoor writer, not nearly exclusively bass. But Brasher was out of Alabama, and he claimed more than 500 largemouths over 10 pounds. Now,
Yeah.
that sounds like what he would do is he would come on down to the panhandle of Florida, fishing at night, throwing big jitterbugs and stuff like that, and maybe he had the most tens. I don't know. Hard to say. Doug Hannon claimed hundreds of bass over 10 pounds. John McClanahan,
Yep.
hundreds of bass over 10 pounds. Our friend Sean Rush, who is a shiner fishing guide in the Ocala National Forest area. Not so much Sean, but his guide parties have caught hundreds of bass over
Bud
10
Andrews.
pounds.
Bud
Bud
Andrews.
Andrews claimed hundreds of bass over 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
and you
a
have
long
guys
race.
out in California,
George Perry caught hundreds over 22.4 in Georgia.
It's the same with John Fox.
Yeah, John Fox caught dozens over 20 in Florida. Yeah,
Right.
not so much. Not so much.
Yeah.
But do we know? No, because these fish that are not record fish typically are not recorded in a meaningful and authoritative way. So
Right.
there's just no way to say who caught the most over 10. We can maybe make a short list of some of the guys who claim to have done amazing things like that. Um,
But
but
we
it's
have to take their
really,
word. We have to take their word as to how many they've caught,
yeah,
because none of them have really been documented.
no,
You get a trophy fisherman that's caught, 15 fish over 10 pounds. They're going to pull a fish up, and if it's not 20 or if it's not their PB, they may put it on a scale and let it go. But
I'll tell you
you just
who.
don't know.
I'll tell you the biggest number I've heard. Okay, Josh Jones, the Texas fishing guide, has over 120 10 plus cast to catch, I guess, captured on video. Okay, obviously a very impressive number. The guy is a master with forward facing sonar. I'll tell you the
Yep.
biggest number I've ever heard uh, of an individual actually catching these fish, not guide parties and things like that, was a guy named Pat Cullen. Now, Pat Cullen was from Valdosta, Georgia, and he claimed more than 1,300 bass, largemouths over 10 pounds, including 6 over 15 and 1 over 18. All taken within an hour of Valdosta, Georgia, and mostly taken on buzz baits at night. If you want to know more about Pat Cullen, he made a video in about 2010 called Trophy Bass Fishing with Pat Cullen, in which he was the self proclaimed most prolific bass fisherman in the world. And he passed away in 2014. He, in the video, and the irony there, Terry, is that in his video, he warned against his style of fishing, buzz baits at night, for anybody who had a weak heart. Well, lo and behold, within a year or two of that video in 2010, he got diagnosed with heart conditions. And so he began taking heart medication. And his wife and some others think that led to him having some sort of mental issues. And he killed himself in 2014. He used to make and sell buzz baits of his own design. I think he had 4 different models, and each one was supposed to do some subtly different thing. But Pat Cullen claimed more than 1,300 bass over 10 pounds. That's the biggest number I've heard. How about you, Terry?
No, he's the highest that I've ever heard of, and I've read that. I didn't know the guy personally, but you read all this stuff, and he was the number one guy that I'd ever heard of. Brasher. What I wanted to say was, it's interesting that he and Brasher were both fishing surface lures, because Brasher was the guy that brought the musky jitterbug into prominence back in the '80s.
Well, they were both fishing at night too.
Exactly. Yep.
And of course,
So
there's a lot of good reasons to fish at night. And hats off to L.J. Brasher for fishing at night in Florida and not being killed by mosquitoes.
or gators.
Yeah, that's I have been out. I have been trapped kind of on the water after dark. Um, you know, getting to the ramp, and the mosquitoes come out, and you're thinking, I'm going to jump in the water and take my chance with the gators because the mosquitoes are intolerable.
And it's not just Florida. My worst experience with mosquitoes, and since this event, I'm now allergic to mosquitoes and bees and all that crap. But so it was my first trip to Michigan to see my buddy Dave, who was essentially, my dad. And I was there for the entire month of June and a couple weeks in July. And I'd been there for a couple weeks, and I mean, I'm living on a lake. It's like, Dave, why don't we go out and fish at night? Oh, I don't want to do it. You know, better fish during the day. It's like, oh, you're crazy. So one night, I'm sitting on the couch, and I got up and I said, I can't stand it. I got to go do it. All right, good luck. And I get out there, and the sun was just on the horizon, and make some casts, catch a couple of fish. And just as the sun dipped below the horizon, I swear to God, it sounded like a flight of B-52s. Like I'm literally looking up in the sky. What the hell's up? You know, and no.
Shack is a little open. No, those kind of B-52s? Or
Yeah, exactly. And within 15, 20 seconds, I was just inundated with mosquitoes. It was all I could do to throw the rod down, pull the troll motor, and get back to the dock. And by the time I got into the house, I had probably 100 on my arm and 100 on the other arm.
That's horrible.
And all over my legs, and my fingers swelled up. My arms, it was nuts. Yeah, so you don't have to. Michigan can hold a candle to Florida when it comes to mosquitoes. And I mean, these things, they're so big that the FAA makes them put freaking tail numbers on them. I mean, they're giant.
I've had friends go to Alaska to go trout fishing in the summer, of course, and there they encounter mosquitoes that have license plates and
breed a turkey standing flat-footed.
Yeah, and these mosquitoes are finding the seams in clothing and jabbing people through that. And I've had friends come back and they've got these marks where the mosquitoes have devastated them. And these marks last for well over a year before they go away. Just horrible. But I've got the mosquitoes here in Florida tend not to be as big. They just got plenty of reinforcements. And it's just brutal. So yeah, I've got a mosquito net for if I ever get caught out again late at night, and I'm certainly willing to wear some sun glove kind of things to protect myself against them to a degree. And I do want to get more into night fishing here in Florida because I think night fishing dramatically increases your chances of catching giant bass. It just covers up so many mistakes. It covers up heavy line. It doesn't give them as good a look at a bait, which may appear mechanical or otherwise false to a bass under better light conditions.
So let me say this. So I told Bill Sonnet my Michigan story because Bill lives in Michigan. And he said, well, for one thing, you went out too early. He said, usually the mosquitoes, after about an hour and a half of the sun being down, the mosquitoes go away.
They say, oh, God, I'm stuffed. I can't possibly exsanguinate another human being.
Yeah. So maybe you want to try, waiting a couple hours and going out.
What is the over-under on how many times I will use the word exsanguinate on this episode? I've already used it twice. The over is looking good. Looking real good.
Anyway, Matthew Pollock's asking if we've had Josh on yet. No, we haven't. I would love to have the guy on. We could learn a lot from how he's targeting these fish if he would tell us.
He did a really good show on Bass U with Pete Glusick. So I would encourage people to track that one down. Pete did a great interview with him and and good stuff there.
Steve.
What? I'm missing this. Oh, let's see. I'm sorry. You might be looking at later posts than me. What you got, Terry?
No, I'm looking at the one that Natty's got up here on the deal. It says, my mother had a mosquito with a tick on its back.
That's pretty good, Steve. I like that one. Hey, we had Brendan Brown asking for if we could get a Nathan sighting. And again, Nathan Nathan is like Bigfoot. There are infrequent and unreliable sightings of Nathan, but maybe we can get Nathan to jump on for just a moment and
Nope.
show his beard in all its manly splendor.
Nope. There have been sightings of me in the past, so you got to go hunt for them.
Well, the first episode we ever did, Nathan stuck his head in very briefly. But how about another
Yeah.
Nathan? Come on, Nathan.
At least
Nathan.
give us a
Nathan,
Mr.
Nathan.
Wilson, from Tim the Toolman Taylor.
That would be cool. Nathan, can you do that?
Let's see. That's it.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Anyway, we got a comment from Mike Davis. It says,
Iron
if
Mike.
science is renaming the largemouth bass, then we should have no issues getting Terry reclassified as Sasquatch. Yeah. See? The hatred.
Actually,
The hatred. Yeah.
actually, Sasquatch is known as
Why would you send her the chickens?
as Californius
I mean,
batistius.
It's just horrible.
I certainly don't know what you're talking about, and
Thank you, Brendan.
I'm sure
you.
that Mike doesn't know what you're talking about either on that. If
The
Pamela
Extra
Dance,
Big Bass podcast.
if Pamela Dance has received chickens in honor of her birthday, which was last Thursday, then I'm sure Terry Battisti was behind it, and probably in front of it,
Oh
and
my
also beside
God.
it. The Extra Big Bass podcast, the EBBP, rather than the TBBP. He's pointing out to your Just for Men. Take a gallon, and would you use a roller, Terry, or a brush? Why am I talking? I've got as much gray as anybody,
Uh,
and I got nothing up here.
yeah, I
At least-
shaved my beard and I look like I'm 20 years younger.
Yeah,
Oh,
I look
racer
old no
you.
matter what.
Don't know if
Well, a
this
bit late. I
is
don't know if this was
Brendan.
mentioned. I read in the Fish Insider News about Titan Max fingerlings. How do you two feel about this level of science regarding big bass? David Shong, our buddy from Wisconsin. Okay, David, let me tell you a little bit about this because I had a chance to talk with Stephen Wisdom and also Josh Sackmar. Stephen is the sales and marketing guy for Titan Bass, and Josh Sackmar is the biologist out there. And the way I feel about this is I want to go fishing out there again because that was the best bass fishing I have ever enjoyed in my entire life. Now, the Titan Bass facility, folks, is in deep South Georgia. You're a long cast away from the Florida state line, and what they are doing is they are not genetically engineering fish. They are not doing that. What they are doing is they are genetically selecting fish. They are breeding fish, and they are looking at the genetic markers that those fish have, and they have found certain traits and patterns, and they have discovered how to select for fish that have a higher top end growth, faster growth, greater aggressiveness. And Terry, I know I've spoken to you about the chance I had to fish this place last year, and at the
Fishing
time
with Hackney, right?
I was fishing with Greg Hackney one morning, and I was allowed. I might have been just about the only guy who was allowed on this one lake all day, and it had been stocked with all female bass, all genetically selected for fast growth, high end growth, and aggressiveness. And I got to stay out there all day, but the first hour was kind of a real highlight because Greg Hackney and I are out there, and we're throwing jigs and we're throwing different baits, but we're not getting a lot of bites. But in the first hour, we put 6 in the boat. And the best 5 of them weighed 39.9. That was an hour's worth of fishing. 39.9 in 5 fish. That was pretty dang good. So, David, what they're doing is, again, not genetically engineering, simply genetically selecting. So they're not mad scientists exactly. Let's just say they're very cool scientists, and I like what they're doing. And these fish are for sale. Anybody who might be interested in getting them to stock in private water or anywhere else, all you need to do is reach out to the folks at Titan Bass. You can find their website, and they can hook you up. They're not cheap, but man, oh man, do they grow big. And Terry, these fish, they hit a topwater bait like it owes them money. It's amazing. I mean, I saw in now I saw these amazing topwater bites on a different lake that had some of the same genetically selected fish in it. And in a day on that lake, I saw more vicious topwater strikes than I've seen in any other 10-year period in one day. They were hitting spooks, they were hitting ploppers, they were hitting buzz baits, and they were knocking them out of the water. And that's not something that a largemouth ordinarily does.
I actually miss the days of northern strain largemouth. We had most of the lakes when I grew up, they were getting Floridas stocked into them. But we had two lakes. We had Lake Piru.
I think you mean Micropterus salmoides, Terry.
I don't know what I mean now because they just changed it on me. We had two lakes, Lake Piru and Lake Kachuma, that had northerns in them. And we would love, if we didn't have a tournament, we would try to go to Piru or Kachuma just to get on a good bite where you'd go, instead of catching 4 or 5 fish in a day, you'd catch 15 or 20 fish in a day. And like you're saying, I mean, you'd go there and you'd fish a jig, and when they'd eat the jig, the line would bounce a foot in the air, or you'd get on these topwater bites that were they destroy them. And holy mackerel, it'd be really nice to get on a bite like that again. It's been a while since, you actually had a fish that was really trying to attack a bait.
I took an opportunity just then while you were droning on and on to
Droning.
because everybody knows Terry talks too much on this show, to check out the new Latin name, scientific name for the northern black bass, and it's Micropterus nigricans. So for all you Latin speakers out there, know that you got a new one to learn. Good luck with that.
I mean, it's got to be black something, right? I mean, negra. I mean, that's the root for black.
Exactly.
So,
and that's the new name for a northern largemouth bass.
Oh God, Ken, I have nothing that Ken wants.
What do we got now? Let's see. They say antique bass lures and memorabilia. What is one item that one has that I wishes he had? Oh,
I had this, and Ken had to go get one. Yeah, the reason Ken has that is because of me.
the reason Ken, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything. Maybe I've got some old swim baits that he might covet, or magazines. I got magazines that he would.
He's got magazines I want. I think I have. I think my book. I haven't seen Terry's book collection, but I think my book collection rivals anybody's book collection in the country, really, for bass.
His book collection dwarfs mine.
But Terry's much more of a bait collector and tackle collector than I am. I mean, I do have some. For whatever reason, I just never got into collecting the baits. If I buy a bait, I'm going to fish with it.
Well, and that's the way that I got my baits. Every bait that I have, I'm not a collector. I just have a bunch of stuff that I've collected since I was 10 years old. And I mean, I've got totes, literally probably 50 or 60 totes that I haven't been able to unpack yet.
And makeup boxes.
I don't have the time.
A lot of people.
And makeup, yeah. I got my Sephora box right there.
He's got.
What is it full of?
Makeup. It's full of like rouge and eyeliner and stuff like that. But when Terry
the hate continues.
When Terry has finished with his eyeliner and his rouge and his whatever, then he puts baits in them. But I assure you that box is full of eyeliner and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
What do I have that?
All right, let's go through this thing here.
This just proves he anticipated this question. The question has probably been posed by Terry.
Here. I got some jigs, bunch of swivels. Japanese heat shrink, an old Terminator jig, mustad hooks. Yeah.
I'll tell you some
What else
baits
we
you
got?
have that I covet, Terry. It's some Ed Chambers baits. Oh wait, I gave those to you. Never mind.
You did give those to me. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, there's well, okay. Let's go down to let's back up for just a second, and because Terry does have a ton of magazines that I would love to have, and I've got a pretty good magazine collection. I've got every Bassmaster magazine ever published. As a matter of fact, the last one I was missing, Terry gave to me 8 or 9 years ago, which was a real
The
wonderful gift.
winter 68, 69 issue.
Yeah, with Jack Wingate on the cover. Terry completed my collection. Terry, you complete me.
Well, I try to. I do my best. All the hate that you throw at me. All I
love.
do is throw love to you.
It's love disguised.
So you're an abuser, is what you are.
It's
you
love
abuse
disguised
me,
as
and then you
scorn.
tell me you love me.
But for anybody
You should
who's
go to a
ever
counselor.
for anybody who's ever we are occasionally invited to join some other programs that we enjoy with friends. Pat Renwick has had us on Straycast a few times, and for whatever reason, Pat enjoys watching us go at each other's throats. And usually the way we do that is he'll have a themed show, and we'll bring out the old memorabilia, and he'll have a contest, and he'll have people vote on who has the better memorabilia. And honestly, I would be undefeated in that, except that for the fact that Pat has fixed those contests. And we pull out the stuff here. I was more concerned with him ordering too much tackle or getting us a 4-pack. It's a good question. Good question, David Shong. Great seeing David Shong at the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
A fine human being.
South Jersey, yes. I actually have been subscribing to Lure magazine for a long time. That and Basser. I actually have more Basser magazines than I do Lure magazines. But
of course,
I got into the Japanese thing back in 1999, and have been there 6 times, and I love the Japanese way of bass fishing.
The Japanese have I love the Japanese. My wife is Japanese. I love going to Japan. It's so cool. The tackle shops there are amazing.
They're like closets.
First of all, some of them are very small, but they stock tackle floor to ceiling. And they're not bothered by American patents, of course. So you'll see a lot of knockoffs doing things that maybe only one company can do in the U.S., but a dozen companies are doing it there. There's a lot of stuff under glass cases in Japanese tackle shops. You feel like you have to walk up and you'd say, "I'd like to see something in a swim bait, please." They pull it out on a red velvet cushion to show it to you like it's some sort of diamond jewelry or something. But the Japanese tackle shops are something else. If you ever have a chance to go to another country and want to explore their bass culture, I highly recommend Japan for that. And their tackle shows.
The Osaka and Tokyo tackle shows.
Oh my God, the Osaka show.
Dwarfs ICAST.
Well, the Osaka show, for example, which is an enormous tackle show, the first day, or maybe it's 2 days, are trade only. So they're like ICAST in that respect. ICAST is just a trade show. If you're if you're a consumer and not an industry person, you can't get in. Unless you contact me, and I'll see if I can get you a badge. But they're just trade. Then the Osaka show, on the final 2 days of the Osaka show, they open it up to the general public, and they will draw 500,000 people over a couple of days, and it is a zoo. And I have never been so glad to be a big fat American as on those public days at the Osaka Tackle Show, because suddenly the retail shops open within the show, and you have to push and shove your way to get back and maybe get a look at a Roman Mother or a DRT Clash 9. And I've been lucky enough to pick up some baits in Japan for a reasonable price, maybe a year or two before they get to the U.S. and start going for $500 or $600. And then I destroy them accidentally by throwing them
I
against
actually
bridge
used to sell
pilots.
baits to Japan. So a guy that I went to elementary school through high school with owns a tackle store in Nagoya, and back at that point, so actually my introduction to Japan was 97, 98. When I had the plastic worm company. I used to hand pour, and I was sending as fast as I could pour them. I was sending baits to Japan, and I did that until 2002, until I got tired of it. That's when I got into writing in 2000, and it's like, hell, I can bang out 1,400 words in about an hour. And get the same amount of money that I was selling plastics for. So,
Lure Lab, who's going to start a GoFundMe for a Big Bass Hall of Fame? I'm giving out certificates. Don't let Japan meet us at that, too. It's a great point. There is a Bass Fishing Hall of Fame, of course, and Terry and I were at their induction ceremony just about 11 or 12 days ago. And there is the National Fishing Lure Collectors Club has a way they honor legendary lure designers and stuff like that. I don't think they call it a Hall of Fame, but they do honor them in some way. They make them honorary or ceremonial members of NFLCC.
yeah.
A Big Bass Hall of Fame. I like it. I'm making a note. Lure Lab, thank you. That's a good idea. The problem is, as I see it, that most people, what would be the standard? We have to come up with a standard of how you get in the Big Bass Hall of Fame. Can you get in on the strength of just one fish? That means you get in on the strength of one cast, most often a lucky cast, or do you get in because you're Doug Hannon or Pat Cullen or John McClanahan or somebody like that, or LJ Brasher. Yeah.
Mike Long.
You got to come up with a standard.
Or, Bob Krupe or Dan Cadota. I mean,
well, Danny Cadota definitely is. Danny Cadota trained a legion of big bass chasers in California. Butch Brown would certainly be a Hall of Famer.
Butch, definitely.
But that's very interesting. I'll tell you what, if we do start a Hall of Fame, we would have to bring in some of our most dedicated watchers and listeners to help us and to vote on it, because we need your help. Nathan needs to be reading these questions. Let's let Nathan read this.
You just mentioned Mike Long. Clay Williamson's asking what's his count. No one would believe in his tactics, but he's got to have some crazy numbers of double digits.
All right. So I, as most of you probably know, Ken and I wrote a lot for Mike. I wrote a column about Mike called The Hunt for Giant Bass in Bass West for 6 years. And he actually supplied a bunch of fish for me that fed into the Big Bass Podcast calculator. Now, these fish, there was no doubt that he had the fish, because they were all verified by Larry Bottroff, according to Larry. So I had no problem using the fish in the calculator, because Larry weighed them, Larry measured them, and that is a data point that I needed. And I needed as many fish over 14 as I could get, and Mike provided quite a few of those fish for the calculator. I actually have Mike Long's count over 10, and I don't remember, because it's been a decade or more since I've even thought about this. But I can dig in my files and find that out for you, Clay. Ken, do you have any idea?
I have no idea, because, Mike was targeting a world record or the biggest fish he could catch, and I don't remember Mike really bringing many fish to the scales or to the public, unless they were going to be lake records, or unless they were going to crack maybe 18 pounds. So he was not he was not particularly interested or not interested in bringing to the 4 fish that were just over 10. Is that a fair statement,
Yeah.
Terry Battisti?
Yeah, I would say that's a fair statement. But according to Mike, what he told me in a number of times that we were talking is that if he caught a fish over 10, he would take a scale sample and he would then send it into Bottroff to have the fish aged. In, if it was the only fish that I cared about were if they were over 14.5 pounds. That was the data, and Bottroff actually touched every one of those fish. But he was also, a fish over 10, he would pull a scale sample, stick it in a small Ziploc, and give it to Larry for Larry to do his thing with. That's what he told me.
And there is no greater authority or more reliable authority than Larry Bottroff.
No, by no stretch. Yeah, I mean he's the man.
Yeah. And hope well. Anyway, yeah. So, who's caught the most over 10? How many would Mike Long have over 10? Just total speculation.
And the data that I have is probably because I came up with the calculator in 2004, 2005, and he continued to fish after that before he got caught. So my data may not be complete, but I guarantee you it's a lot.
I love the Lure Lab idea of having a Big Bass Hall of Fame. I really do.
Yeah.
But you know what?
And I would need a GoFundMe page because you gotta have a place for it, right?
Well, I think a virtual Hall of Fame is
too,
worthwhile. Yeah. I think that's something everybody could participate in, could check it out, could visit it on some meaningful level, and we'd have pictures and commentary and articles, and I think that could be better than what a lot of the halls of fame are able to do now.
Well, it would open it up to a lot more people.
Yeah, and I think that we'd have to have a very rigorous, the most rigorous process of evaluating. Yeah, process of evaluating potential inductees or honorees.
And George Perry would have to be the first one that would be inducted.
Not so fast, Terry Battisti. Not so fast. Well, somebody.
He's the James Henshaw of Big Bass.
How dare you, sir? No. How dare you?
Well, that could be H.W. Ross. I mean, would you put H.W. Ross in it?
I'd certainly advocate for H.W. Ross. I would advocate.
How about Harden?
Maybe not so much. But again, folks, go back. A couple of the early episodes we did on the Big Bass podcast, very early this year, covered H.W. Ross, who caught a 23 plus in the state of Florida in 1884. That I think there's a legit argument that should still be the world record. And then Terry also mentioned Walter Harden, a Pennsylvania angler who had the world record for smallmouth bass for several years.
Lived in the state of smallmouth and yet would come to Florida and get confused.
Came to Florida, caught a lot of giant smallmouth bass, including at least one over 14 pounds. So, just people, and that's why I think Florida is the best bass state, is because we're the only state that's ever produced a smallmouth over 14. Nathan, you've got a question from Clay Williamson.
Yeah, he's asking when we're going to get a George Perry show.
Not only that, but Clay knows George Perry's middle name, which is Washington, George Washington. I think half the guys born between about 1850 and maybe 1920 or 1925, if their first name was George, their middle name was Washington. And George Perry, George W. Perry, is no exception. We really want to do the George Perry show. And but we're not going to do a George Perry show. We're going to do a George Perry series.
Yeah.
I have actually kind of mapped it out. I think the George Perry story has to be told over somewhere between 5 and 15 episodes. I'm not exaggerating. I
Well,
think
so you're doing so if we do 5, it would be 5 1-hour shows.
right.
And if we did 15, it would, be 15 20-minute shows.
Well, I think some of those shows would be an hour or more, but I think we'd also do a lot of 15 to 20-minute shows in there
Yeah,
that cover.
so maybe now it's a good time to ask, the viewers, do you want to knock it out in 5, or do you want us to drag it out for like a flipping series?
Like a season. We could do a season of nothing but George Perry shows. And some of the shows would be topics that don't seem like a big deal, but they are a big deal to either me or Terry, or most often both of us. Like, for example, a lot of people who are fans of that story and know that story know that Perry wasn't fishing alone that day. He was fishing with a friend of his named Jack Page. And Jack Page, poof, gone to history, fished that day on June 2nd, 1932, and then poof, nobody ever saw or heard of him. Well, guess who tracked him down about 7 years ago and found Jack Page? I did. I know where Jack Page is. He's dead, but I know where he is.
6 feet below.
He's not answering a lot of questions, but I know where he is. And there's no question that this is the guy. No question. And one show would be just about Jack Perry. I'm sorry, Jack Page. Jack Page, yeah.
Jeez.
Another show would be just about the lure that Perry allegedly used to catch the fish, because
and
for
the
a long
controversy
time,
of the lure.
there's been huge controversy about what lure he caught that fish on. Was it a creek chub wigglefish? Was it a creek chub fintail shiner? We would do a show, about. Well, we do a lot of shows about a lot of different things, and we do a show about his 1934 catch that also won the Field and Stream Big Fish Contest, and that allegedly weighed 13 pounds, 14 ounces. I have a photograph of that fish. That photograph has appeared on the cover of national fishing magazines. It's behind me. It's way up high, I think. Where is that picture? It's behind me somewhere. It's back there, way up high on a bookshelf. So I'm not going to pull it down right now, but I think I've shown it to y'all. So yeah, we got a lot of shows to do. If we do that, we would either kind of cram it all in to 5 1-hour episodes, or we'd spread it out and go into a lot of detail and a lot of minutia that would bore some of you to tears. But for those of you who are, really, really hardcore, I think you'd love it. One of the things I want to do in the Big Bass podcast, I think Terry and Nathan are on the same page with me on this, is I basically want to tell you everything I know about these fish and these catches. We're not holding anything back unless we think, should we tell him he had scrambled eggs that morning? That's some of the discussions we have before we start recording. Eric Ahlstrom, what does he say, Nathan?
He says, whole series, we want all the details.
What do you want, Nathan? Do you want the whole series, or do you want to...
I want all the details.
Nathan likes the deets. Just the kind of guy Nathan is. He's a shadowy, lurking figure.
I think it goes without saying that if we do a show on anything, you're going to get all the details.
Yep.
There's no doubt about that. It's just that the Perry story, there's a shit ton of details, and it's a daunting task. I mean, this would be akin to writing a PhD dissertation and presenting it. And
yeah,
would you agree?
I absolutely would. I would also say, to compare it to something that we've already done on the Big Bass podcast, we did the David Hayes story in what, 3 episodes?
3 episodes. And the sad thing about that is that we got good numbers for the first show, and then it tanked after that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that it was our best. I don't know that any of those were our best show, but I thought those were close to the
They
best
were
we can
solid.
do.
Yeah.
I thought those were solid shows. I thought we did a good job. I thought we delivered all the details anybody could want. I guarantee you we told folks more about David Hayes and his world record smallmouth bass than exists anywhere
Anywhere.
else.
Yeah.
And you know, kind of a collective meh from the numbers. You know, I expect that
I mean,
everybody who's
I guarantee everybody that's here tonight, they all watched it. But
yeah,
for some
y'all are the
reason,
hardcore folks. Y'all are the hardcore
yeah,
folks.
the what happened, and I don't know if this is a YouTube thing or what. It just it didn't get any, they didn't get any traction after that first episode. It was kind of weird.
It was disappointing, and I don't. Maybe that's the best way to transition into a conversation about the show generally, and that is that not so much Terry, not quite so much Nathan, but me being an extremely impatient and annoying person. And I know Terry will vouch for that. Uh, I've been disappointed by our growth in recent months. The last few months, we've not had a single month where we got more than 50 new subscribers over the entire month-long period. And that's been disappointing to me. Maybe I overestimated the number of folks who would be interested in something like we're doing, or maybe we're not delivering a good show. I don't know what the answer is, but we're not finding the size of audience that we had hoped to find. And we probably have in a really good week, Nathan. Nathan, how many? We'll get 1,000 viewers on YouTube in a good week. 1,000
Yeah.
is pretty good week for us. Nathan, how do we do on the other platforms in the week after we launch a new show? Do you have any idea off the top of your head?
Apple's comparable to YouTube, maybe even slightly higher.
Okay, so let's be generous here and let's say we get 2,500 viewers and listeners in a week.
Mm-hmm.
That's I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad, but I can tell you that falls short of what I hoped we would have.
Yeah.
And we have an idea of the show we want to give you. We have an idea of the show that we have fun doing, but we also need to give you the show that you want. And so if y'all can give us some comments here as to what that looks like or sounds like, we're open to it. Terry, what would you say about it?
Yeah, I mean, the amount of research that goes into, and Ken and I both come from research backgrounds and being a lawyer, which if you know anything about law, you got to do your freaking research in order to put someone in jail or keep somebody out of jail.
Or you will be crushed like a bug.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I come from a research background in engineering, and it's the research. Telling the story is the easy part. It's getting all of your ducks in a row prior to telling the story, so you can actually put the story together in order for it to be told the proper way. I mean, it takes a ton of time, and I got to say it right up front that you know, Ken, for the most part, has done, I would say, 75% of the research for the shows that we've done so far this year. Is it 80%, Ken?
I don't know. 80? I don't know that it's that high. I don't know, because I'll say this. Yeah, I'll kind of take the lead on the research for a lot of the shows, but Terry's also kind of researching behind me to keep me honest, to catch the stuff that I miss and things like that. And so there's a ton of research. Even if I'm taking on a heavier load on some of that, Terry's also trying to do some research behind me, and sometimes he's taking the lead on these stories. He especially is invaluable in the shows coming out of California, and in the shows involving some of the bait makers. Terry is doing more work than I am. Um,
But I
some
think we're not here to pat each other on the back and kiss all over each other.
Well, that's why I'm here.
I mean, it's a shit ton of work. We want it, and if we're going to put something out, we want it. It's why we had the door slam at the end of the show. There's nothing else that anybody can add to the show that we do on any of the subjects that we do.
Yeah, that the door slam. I think we've explained it before, maybe on the first live show we did. But the door slam is something that I've always tried to do in my work, which is okay. I've covered it. Now you bastards try to come in and do better than this. And it's a cocky move, but yeah, that's our bitch slap in the face to anybody who might want to try to tell the same story.
Bitch slap in your own backyard. That comes from Monty Works.
And Nathan, Tim Maynard's got a nice comment.
Yep, he says quality over quantity. You've got some premium quality viewers in here.
And we appreciate every single one of you that
absolutely
put up with Ken's droning on every freaking week.
I realize I may talk too much, but the listeners and the viewers that I appreciate, Tara, are the ones who will say that you talk too much. Those are my favorite people.
Yeah, exactly.
Including Pamela Dance, who makes a fine point that you talk too much.
So C. Griff says, Mike Long and Perry stories will keep me coming. We want to have Mike on. We want to hear Mike's side of the story. It's going to be, it may be a difficult task. And I wrote for Mike for a long time. Ken wrote a bunch of stuff with Mike for a long time. I stayed at Mike Long's house. I went fishing on Lake Jennings with Mike Long on a closed day. Mike hasn't reached out to me since the incident, but he reached out to Ken about a year ago. Maybe a little bit more than a year ago.
Yeah, more than a year ago now. And Mike and I are in contact, which is great. He's getting into photography now, still doing some fishing. And I'm going to invite Mike on the show. I hope he'll take us up on that. And we're going to do a Perry show, or like we talked about earlier, we're going to do a series of Perry shows. Maybe we'll even call it the George Perry series, and we'll knock out somewhere between 10 and 20 shows just on George Perry and the world record largemouth. The world record largemouth, by the way, Terry, would be Micropterus nigricans, or possibly Micropterus salmoides. I'm not sure. Nobody knows right now.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, we want to do that. We want to kickstart it. Honestly, one of the things that has slowed us down, apart from the fact that a Mike Long show, we'd want at least 3 of those, or a George Perry show, we'd want many of those, is a daunting amount of work. I can't tell you how many hours. I didn't put hours into the David Hayes episodes. I put years into the David Hayes episodes. Nathan and I were putting tons of work into those shows, going back
15 years,
several decades. Yeah. And I mean, we put David Hayes back in the record book, and we were disappointed that the show didn't perform better than that. Didn't get a bigger audience. Didn't really launch us to the next level. So yeah. If y'all offer tips, we'll follow up on them.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, and I'm seeing this on Facebook right now with respect to the Bass Fishing Archives. Bass Fishing Archives in all this, from January through April, I had tripled the traffic on the website due to Facebook in that first 4 months, and then in May, June, July, and August, I quintupled the traffic. And then now, Facebook has done something and they've shut us down. We're not getting people coming to read the posts on Facebook as of the last 3 or 4 weeks. And I think that's exactly what YouTube is doing. Is they want you to either spend money with them advertising or what have you. And the only way around it, and I know that our followers are doing this, putting the word out, but I don't know how to get around the YouTube algorithm. I mean, it's just once they see someone's gaining some traction, they put the brakes on and quit sharing that video as much. Or in the case of Facebook, they just stop sharing the post in people's feeds, or suggesting it to new people. It's crazy.
I love Eric Alstrom's comment here. Maybe you need some clickbait titles. The biggest bass no one wants you to know about. I think that's, maybe there's some truth to that, but I'm not sure. I hate to think it. I hate clickbait. I just hate clickbait. There's a guy, and maybe some of y'all subscribe to his channel, who will do a picture like this. And he'll say, "Is this the best big bass lure no one wants you to know about?" And I just want to punch the guy. But he has over 100,000 followers and 100,000 YouTube subscribers. And I think he's an idiot. And I think his content sucks. And I think he's irrelevant because he hasn't won a tournament in about 50 years. Not that long. But I think he's irrelevant.
He's won $2 million over the course of his career.
He spent $8 million. He spent $8 million to get there, Terry. I'm sure he hasn't won a tournament in 30 years. I'm pretty sure of that.
I don't think so.
Pretty sure of that.
This big cut.
There you go. Rich is saying,
Rich needs to write our freaking titles or do our thumbnails. And Rich, we both get that. We subscribe to that link that you sent us, and I read that thing every week, and I try to fashion it. I just, I follow you, Rich.
Yeah. Rich O'Hellabass, great guy, great content creator. We were privileged to be on Rich's show some months back. I'm really enjoying the comments. Now, we're not going to get to them all here that everybody's is throwing out there for us. That might help the show, and we're gonna pay a lot of attention to these. We're gonna take notes. We're gonna make some of these happen. Let me tell you a little bit about how we and Nathan, can you tell us what Clay says?
Yeah, it just says the content is solid and the sources are of the utmost integrity. Straight fire.
Thank you, Clay. Much appreciated. And we work hard on this show, and Terry was commenting about the titles and all, and we've never gone for clickbait. We want people to know what they're walking into and what they're about to.
We're serious about what we do, and we don't want there to be any doubt in your mind. What you see is what you get, right? WYSIWYG, right?
Absolutely, and we all have a different role we play.
Thank you, Oliver,
on this show. Thank you very much, Oliver. And and you're never going to get, is this the best lunker bass lure of all time? What the lunker bass technique that the pros don't want you to know about. I can't believe I'm about to give up the juice. Somebody bitch slap him.
Oh, be nice to.
Because he's so bad. I just hate it. Anyway.
I love him. He's been a hero of mine since I was, we're the same age, so, but he was doing what I wanted to do. And,
he's older than you. And he's
by 2 years.
Come
on, it's 60 years old. If you're 61, 62, 58, you're the same age.
Hang on, I'll tell you exactly how old he is.
Creator Hooks is right.
I'll tell you exactly how old he is. Let's see.
Clay, thank you, man, for coming by.
He'll be 62 later this year. Anyway, not a fan here. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that, because he does seem to be a nice guy. I'm not a fan of how he does it and what he does. I think that there's a better way. I think there's a way with more integrity. I'll say that. But I don't think he's interested in that. I think he's interested in how much money he can make. And I don't blame him. We'd like to make money off this show. We would love to make money off of this show. We would love to be able to have sponsors and all. And frankly, we're not good salespeople.
No, I'm an engineer. That right there. That's the personality of an engineer.
I'm a bass fishing writer, so you know that I have made sketchy decisions in my life.
Well, wait, you're a lawyer. You should be no scruples, right?
I used to be. I'm recovering now. I'm recovering. So, but yeah. So I do more of the research probably than anybody, and I love telling the stories. Terry loves telling the stories. He does a lot of research, and we divide it up where it makes sense to break it out. Where Terry's already 75% down the road on a particular story, then we just say, hey, Terry, knock yourself out. And we literally have terms like who's the angler on this one and who is the co-angler. Truly.
Yeah, that's how we write the script.
Yeah. And it's lightly scripted, I would say. Each show is lightly scripted. So that we at least know where we want to go with it. I actually had and Terry's doing a lot of overlap with what I'm doing there. Now, since I handle more of the research than Terry does, and since I have almost zero technical skills, Terry handles some of the post-production stuff, coming up with the thumbnails and working on the titles. But Nathan,
so you can blame me on the thumbnails and the titles. It's all my fault.
It's entirely Terry's fault that no one wants to click on them. Nathan handles 90-something% of all our post-production stuff. He makes sure that our show actually is visible to other human beings, so that we're not just kind of having this conversation from basements in Florida and Tennessee. Nathan is the tech guru of it all. We all help with different aspects of that. Whoever is the angler on a program will help select the images that go in that show.
The angler is the guy that's doing most of the research.
Angler's doing most of the research and probably most of the finding of photos and visual aids. Nathan's making sure they get in there, they look good and stuff like that. And Terry's coming up with those thumbnails that we use. And Terry shot the little promo for this episode. So you got to see Terry do that.
Yeah.
We got to get the eye candy wherever we can.
Yeah.
And that's mostly Nathan actually, but Terry's not shy like Nathan.
I'm like eye sauerkraut.
Joseph Gill says, Nathan?
Could have Randy on the show.
Who's Randy?
I don't know.
I have no
Randy's
idea.
not known
Probably
for
a friend
big
of
fish.
his.
So that do we even want to discuss this? About
Joseph, I don't know who Randy is, so I can't help you there. You talking about Randy Van Dam? Yeah, we'd love that. We'll get Randy Van Dam on here one of these days. Talk about that.
RVD would
Records
be
smallmouth.
awesome. Yeah,
RVD would be great. Randy Newman, he's mostly known for his songwriting and compositional skills. I'm a huge Randy Newman fan, actually, but he's known for music and not really for
Randy Howell.
For Randy Howell, Randy.
That's Tim Maynard's deal.
Randy's a wonderful guy, and of course, 2014 Bassmaster Classic champion, but not really known for big bass. Randy Behringer was a pro in the 80s, 90s. Haven't heard from much from Behringer lately. A lot of Randys. Not sure which one you're digging at there, man.
Randy Travis,
a country music artist. I know quite a few Randys, but I'm not sure. Randall Tharp, call him Randy. Sometimes one of the great pitchers, flippers, catches some good fish, but I don't know, man. Randy.
So Devin Mathewson asked, any more update on the Wisconsin state record bass?
Where's Dave?
No. Dave, our buddy Stumpjack up in Wisconsin, he is taking on that arduous task. He has actually gone down to the State Department of Fish and Game, asked to look through their records. They looked at him like a deer in the headlights and said, "What files? We have no files." uh, he has made multiple phone calls, dozens of phone calls. I talk to Dave almost every day. And he has not had any luck yet. He's on a cold trail, but he is a bloodhound and he will figure it out. I guarantee it. It may take him a year. It may be a Ken Duke type of thing with H.W. Ross, where we didn't. I mean, Ken had been studying that fish for 40 years. And we did not know H.W. Ross's name, his H.W. Was it the H.W. that you didn't know until like 40 minutes before we went live?
It was that day I found out
Yeah.
Ross's first and middle names earlier that day, and
Yeah.
that was a breakthrough moment. How sad is it that I got such joy out of that moment when I discovered that he was Horace Warren Ross, born in 1952 in New York, died in 1899 in Florida. That was
So he was
that was
born
a big
after
deal
he
to
was
me.
he was born after he died.
I'm sorry, born 1852, died 1899. What did I say? But yeah, H.W. Ross, that was
That was a
that
big
was
deal.
a big deal to me. Big deal to me. I
Yep.
live a small life.
Yeah. Anywho, yeah, there's a lot of people, a lot of fish that we still have to do, and I mean when Ken sent me at the beginning, or hell, it was the beginning. It was about this time last year that you sent me your spreadsheet of show titles, and it was like 210 lines long. Like, holy crap! Yeah, we could do this for a couple of years. And then I think I added because there really wasn't much more to add. The only stuff that I added, I maybe added about 35 more titles that were all based out of the West. I mean, so yeah, we've got enough content to go on for at least the point to where we're both 6 feet under.
And should we talk about frequency of the show moving forward, Terry?
Yeah, well, so Ken and Nathan are getting ready to launch a new podcast called Bass After Dark.
No, it's going to be bad. It's not.
It's going to be bad in a good way, but it's Bass After Dark, and it's going to be Brian the Carpenter, Ken, and 3 guests. And Ken is going to be in. Should I tell him what your attire will be?
Yeah, if you want to. I wasn't
His
thinking we were going to go there, but okay.
Yeah. So the idea of the show, from the way I understand it, is Ken is going to be in a leather recliner. It's going to be dark, with a spotlight on his face. He's going to be in a big brown fur coat with a fedora.
Okay, now I have to take over. If we're going to talk about Bass After Dark, yeah, it's me, Nathan, and Brian Stockel, aka Brian the Carpenter, Mike Iaconelli's great buddy, longtime producer of Ike Live and Bass University. So, the premise of the show is that it's a late night bass fishing talk show. And if you just want to get into the format of the show, I will come on. I will be dressed in a tie and sport coat or suit, and I will deliver a monologue. After which I will kick it over to BTC, who is my co-host, and he will then introduce the premise of that evening's show. And the show is a single question. One question will cover the entire evening's conversation. And the question might be something like, should forward-facing sonar be banned in bass competitions? Do we have a cheating problem in bass fishing? Who is winning the bass war between BASS and MLF and NPFL? So we'll have one question, and we'll have three guests. I shouldn't call them guests because we're not going to exactly treat them like guests. We're going to treat them like panelists, and that's what they are. And leading into the show, the audience won't know who the panelists are, and the panelists won't know who the other panelists are. But we're going to select them based upon where we think they're going to land and how we think they're going to facilitate that conversation, so that we can get a healthy debate and conversation going. So, after I do my monologue and Brian introduces the topic of the show, you will next see me sitting in a big leather chair wearing a smoking jacket and ascot, and then we will introduce our panelists, and hilarity ensues as we discuss this topic. I'm very excited about it. I think it's going to be cool and fun. Nathan, of course, is going to be the tech genius behind it to make sure that all of this comes together and works. We're hoping to get that thing started here pretty soon. We've been planning to do it for a long time, but a lot of stuff has come up.
Start it in September.
Oh, we were supposed to start it in June,
Yeah,
and then
true.
September, and now it's looking like, late October or November. But we are going to get it started. We are going to get it started this year, and I'm excited about it. And
all that to say,
that is that the Big Bass Podcast is a chunk of work, and Bass After Dark is going to be a chunk of work. Thursdays at 9 Eastern, by the way, and so something kind of has to give, and because not so much Terry and Nathan, but because I have been a tad, or more than a tad, frustrated by our slow growth here on the Big Bass Podcast. Terry?
I've had a YouTube channel for a while, and we're on the Big Bass Podcast doing leaps and bounds better than that. But,
Yeah, but yours is a silent film on how to write music, so I think that's a weird one.
Well, not only that, I haven't had any content in quite a while, but I knew. I mean, when we first started this, I thought that we were going to hit 20,000 by the end of this year. I honestly did. But when it started slowing down, I was like, "Yep, okay, yeah." But you talk to any YouTuber out there, and if you crack 1,000 before your first year, you've done amazing. And we cracked 1,000 in April, and we got 1,500 subscribers now.
Almost.
Yeah, I wish it was I wish it was better, but yeah,
We are currently, if you want live up-to-date numbers on our subscribers, let's see, where are we? We currently have 1,470 YouTube subscribers. Nathan, do you have a number on how many Apple subscribers we have, or followers, or whatever they call them over there?
I don't have that in front of me. I can probably give you a rough number.
That's because all Nathan has in front of him, Terry, is Cheetos dust.
What the hell?
I'm just saying, that or freaking crab rangoon freaking crumbs. that or a freaking pizza casserole or something, you know what I mean? That's deep dish pizza, by the way.
Nathan, it's Terry. It's not me taking these shots at you. I would never do that.
I know that.
Yeah, no, it I don't know.
So we're looking at anyway, maybe 3,000 subscribers. Is that fair, Nathan? 3,000, 3,100, something like that?
Yeah, it's close to 1,000 subscribers on Apple Podcasts.
Okay, so fewer than 3,000. Anyway, all that to say that we are likely to be cutting back to bi-weekly on the Big Bass Podcast. Not really something I want to do, or Terry wants to do, or Nathan wants to do, so much as it's an acknowledgement of the reality of it, because Nathan and I want to get Bass After Dark rolling. Terry needs to get his podcast for bass-archives.com rolling, and the best way for us to facilitate that is to acknowledge that this channel is not growing as fast as we want it to, and maybe we should take some of our focus and put it elsewhere. We're not stopping the Big Bass podcast. We are just
No.
not going to do it as a weekly show.
Yeah, and it, I mean, the quality might. I mean, it's hard to believe that the quality could get better, but maybe it will. At least we won't feel like we're scrambling, because I know every single one of our shows, we're not done with the research until, I mean, sometimes it's up until the minute that we start.
Yeah, Terry's being
It,
kind, because quite often I will send an outline to him and Nathan almost just minutes before we start,
yeah,
because
yeah,
we want to get it
uh,
right. We want to dig as deep as we can, and I'll go
yeah,
on these weird. If you hear one of us rattling off how old a guy was when he caught a fish, that's me going into genealogical archives to
yeah.
find that information, because I have a problem. Um,
Yeah, so
and
Ken subscribes to Ancestry.com, all these genealogy. I won't do it. I flat refuse to give the Chinese my freaking data. Um, it's it's just one of those deals.
but will you tell him about the big bass killer that no one wants you to know about?
Yeah, Lure Lab, holy mackerel, dude. Gee whiz, thank you, sir.
Wow.
We're not doing this for you
Lure
guys.
Lab,
Hey,
we
we
can be
don't.
bribed. We can be
Yeah,
bribed.
but at the outset, Ken and I and Nathan, when we started this thing, we said that we did not want to do a Patreon. We did not want people to be paying to watch us drone on, and we wanted to be able to get to we wanted to be able to get on our own through viewership, to the point to where we would have companies asking us to sponsor the show. um, that's just the
And
way we think about it, you know
ironically, I got an email today from an entity that may be interested in doing something with us. I don't know. I've got to follow that. I've got to follow that email up. But
yeah.
and we haven't asked anybody to sponsor us,
No.
except loosely to say, hey, if you want to sponsor us and make us all rich beyond our wildest dreams, um, you got our email addresses. But
Yeah.
but we haven't really gone out and solicited any sponsors or anything like that, because we're not smart like that. You know, our intelligence is very limited. Uh, Kyle, it's not
Oh
that
shit,
bad.
Kyle. Oh, again, divorcing you again? No. Yeah, I mean, it will be every 2 weeks, which means there will be 26 shows, unless something changes and we go back to a weekly thing. Um, I mean, that's always the possibility. But like Ken said, he's got his. It's not like you're not going to see us. Ken's going to have Bass After Dark. I'm going to revamp the bass fishing archives. To where we're doing stuff like this, to where it's not just me in front of a camera. We're going to be doing interviews. We're going to, have co-hosts, stuff like that. So you're going to be able to get your history Jones fulfilled, through the other two shows that we're going to be doing. And in the meantime, we're not going to be scrambling at the last minute to provide a Big Bass podcast show that we feel is worthy of you wasting your time on.
Yeah, and Kyle, not like your wife divorcing you again. Does that mean she divorced you once and then she came back and she's your wife? Well, I'm not sure. Anyway, Brendan,
The divorce lawyer.
Nathan, what does Brendan from Brown Bait Company have to say?
Well, he offered to sponsor us, but he doesn't have money, so he'll send more bait.
Brendan Brown and Brown Bait Company, they make some fabulous, fabulous big swim baits. I've got mine. Have you got yours close there, Terry?
Right here.
I've got mine right here. I'm probably going to break something.
It's beautiful, and it's wood. This is not a resin bait. It's just it's a work of art.
It is. I'll tell you what I think is the coolest. Now here's mine, and Brendan gave us these baits at iCast.
Yeah.
Here's mine, which is a nice big kind of bluegill bodied wake bait. Absolutely gorgeous. Junebug. Who makes them in Junebug? Well, Brendan Brown makes them in Junebug because he knows good Florida colors, and Terry got a baby bass, but ironically, that's larger than most of the bass Terry catches. And so you
Don't
can't
judge me.
Terry can't call it baby bass. Well, let me show you something really cool.
It's
that
a
Brendan
keeper.
does. That's right. Brendan, that's going to wind up in his live well. He may try to fillet it. Yes. Yes. Look at this.
Yeah. It's actually wood from the frickin' bait that he carved. I mean, it's pretty cool.
These are the
And-
shavings
And the
that were
kid's got
taken
some
away.
wicked carving skills. Because if you look at, my other passion is woodworking. If you look at these frickin' shavings, I mean, he's got mean knife skills.
Yeah, this is a talented young man, Brendan Brown, and I think that's just genius to package these highly coveted baits with the part that he cut away to create them. Kind of like I don't know who the sculptor was who said the key is to take a look at the stone, the granite, and then chip away at all the things that are
Michelangelo.
not your statue.
So
Was it Michelangelo who said that?
Yeah. He says you've got to see your creation inside that block of granite. And then it's your job to take away the material to finally get to your thing.
So Brendan Brown is the Michelangelo of swim baits. Very cool. Very cool. And and speaking of swim baits and speaking of some of our shows that have been more successful and gotten bigger numbers, the shows that have had the bait designers, the shows that have had guests, by and large, have done better than the shows that didn't.
Yeah.
The Jim Brown shows, the Stephen Barden shows, Jerry Rago, Alan Cole.
They knocked it out of the park.
Keith Thomas. Oh my God, Byron Velvick. Those shows did super, super duper well. So one of the things we're going to try to do is make sure that half our shows moving forward have guests.
Yeah.
Another thing that was a little bit surprising to me was how well our Western-based shows, and I shouldn't say Western, I should say California shows. The California shows have done very well. And maybe we need to give you all more California. Honestly, when I can... Go ahead.
I was going to say, it surprised the heck out of me, that outside of California, Nevada, Arizona, maybe Oregon, that anybody east of those states would give a rip about what the hell was going on in California. But when we did those first couple shows on Casitas and with Jim Brown, it kind of recalibrated my thought that, this whole world record thing, it may have started in Florida with Perry, but it was, all of us essentially grew up reading Bassmaster. If you were outside of the West, you read Bassmaster and you saw these big fish. And when you're a 10 or a 12 or 15-year-old kid reading those stories in Bassmaster, and then all of a sudden, you get to learn about it when you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, or older. You get to learn about what really happened. I mean, it's going to draw attention and it's going to get people to show,
And on the total flip side of that, Terry had a business trip recently. He was in Australia, and he had, and then he came down with COVID for I think the 17th time.
Oh, I thought I strained my beard.
Well, I may have used that as an excuse. And I did a show by myself. I've done 2 shows by myself.
Holy crap!
I've done
Thank
2
you,
shows by
Wolf.
myself because Terry was, hey, Wolf of Walmart, thank you so much. Very kind of you. Um, uh, I've done 2 shows by myself. One I did much earlier in the year, and because Terry couldn't make it, was right after the Bassmaster Classic. Terry couldn't make it. So
Yeah,
just to punish Terry and to make him feel bad, I did a show called The One That Got Away. And I
prick.
reached out to Shaw Grigsby, Skeet Reese, Jeff
Bill
Gustafson,
Dance.
coming off a classic win, and
Yeah,
Bill Dance, the most famous angler in the world. And I got them to come on the show when there was no Terry. And I got a kick out of that because that show did very well, obviously, because look at the people we had on it. I'm sorry, look at the people Nathan and I had on it. Uh, but then when Terry couldn't make another show recently, I said, I want to try something here. And so I did a show that was just me sitting down in front of the camera, in front of the computer and microphone, and telling a story about a largemouth bass contributing to the extinction of a species, a bird in South and Central America.
that
And
was that was what, a 3-minute show.
no, it was a short show. It was the shortest show we ever did. But
Holy crap, Lure Lab.
it was, yeah, thank you again, Lure Lab. It was a show that I wanted to experiment with a little bit, see what a shorter format would do, see what just a straight up narrative storytelling would do, because I enjoy doing that if it's done well. That's not to say that I can do it well, but I enjoy doing that kind of thing. And it only has had 530 something listeners so far. That show tanked. Now, I don't know whether it was because it did not have, the walking beard over here, or because people just weren't interested in the subject matter, but that one disappointed me quite a bit.
Yeah.
So obviously when Terry's beard is in good shape, we do better.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I went to Australia for work, and halfway through the trip, I got COVID, and I got home Friday night, not knowing that I had COVID. Woke up Saturday morning, had COVID. We were supposed to record Sunday night, and I called Ken and I said, I can't do this. You're gonna have to figure something out. And thankfully, he figured something out. Unfortunately, it freaking died in the vine. But we have Matthew Pollock asked, "Would you try to get Mike to come on?" And I assume he's talking about Mike Long. Yeah, we're gonna.
We
try.
will. We absolutely will.
We are gonna try. It's all up to Mike, and
Say what you will about Mike Long. He caught a lot of big fish. We don't know about the provenance or the legality of some of those catches, but he caught a lot of big fish, and he's a very articulate guy.
one of the best interviews that I've ever done, and I'm sure that you have the same opinion.
I do.
Unbelievably
Mike's a great
articulate.
interview. Mike's a terrific interview, and I would love to have him on the show. He has a lot to answer for, frankly. And
Your loyal partner.
what's that?
Sorry. Bella is giving me shit.
Oh, Mike has a lot to answer for, and if he comes on the show, it's not gonna be a softball interview. Both Terry and I have known Mike Long for a long time. Did a lot of work with Mike Long, and
But we also believe that he deserves to tell his side of the story.
absolutely, this is not a matter of defending him. This is a matter of giving him an opportunity to tell his side of the story, which, to my knowledge, he has not done in any capacity. Well, I don't know. Let's see. Nathan, what does Wolf of Walmart say?
He said, I
love
know
this.
Ken's disdain for California, but being a Californian, I'd rock the heck out of a Make America Florida shirt. Well, I fish on the Delta.
Sounds
Thank
like
you, Wolf.
You need to send Wolf a freaking shirt, Ken.
Make America Florida. I've got one. I've got such a shirt. It's a Ron DeSantis 2024 shirt, in fact. And those came out before Ron DeSantis announced he was running for office. But yeah, make America Florida, man. What are you
Freaking
laughing at?
Brown Bait and Tim Maynard are talking wood over here. Jute Long and Basswood and Balsa Wood and oh my gosh, yeah, good
Keith
stuff.
wants a representative from Normark Rapala. Keith, weren't you also asking about Buck Perry? Your show is more expansive than the one the rest of us are doing here, Keith. Um,
That would be a Bass Fishing Archives deal,
yeah,
and yeah,
definitely.
I would love to have a rep from Rapala or Rapala.
I know
Uh,
some guys.
yeah,
I know some guys.
yeah, yeah.
Paul English, I don't know if you're talking about the giant pied billed grebe show or not, but if you are, thank you. Thank you. I enjoyed doing that show. It was fun. Terry's just reading now. He doesn't realize this is audio.
Oh, hey, Ken and Terry, you guys pour your hearts into producing these episodes. Excellent investigators. Thank you, sir and Terry. Yeah.
We do. We try really hard, and Nathan tries really hard on the production end to give you guys the best audio quality, and on YouTube, giving you the best visuals and bonus visual aids. You know, the photos and the maps and the things like that. We are doing the best we can with what we have and with our limited storytelling and technical skills.
Frank Doucette.
What fortnightly posts? Well, I'll just watch the existing ones even more than I have.
Frank is apparently writing us from England in about 1640, judging by his reference to fortnights. But I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
What was the word I got to use earlier, Frank? I think I got to use exsanguinate. I think I beat the over under on exsanguinate, and you have now beat the over under on fortnightly. Nicely done. Nicely done, sir.
Travis says it will pick up. The content is too good.
I hope you're right. But for the foreseeable future, it's going to have to pick up on the basis of us delivering the program bi-weekly rather than weekly. We've enjoyed doing it weekly. We truly have. It's a lot of fun, and for me, the biggest part of the fun is actually getting to work with Nathan and Terry because they're wonderful friends. But I can't tell you what a kick I get out of waking up Tuesday morning and going to click over on YouTube and check out the comments. And we try to respond to every single comment. One of us or both of us will respond to every single comment. We appreciate that y'all are listening so intently and care about the show. That's a big deal. So South Jersey bait reviews. You think more engagement in the comments on the vids help? I think we're as engaged on the comments as any YouTubers out there. I think it's extremely rare for somebody to make a comment on one of our episodes that we don't reply. I'm sure we've dropped the ball a time or two, but
I've dropped the ball over the last 3 weeks with my travel schedule and my COVID crap. You know,
Terry's like a 6'3" petri dish.
well, I also got a 5-year-old, so you know,
with a 5-year-old.
yeah, who goes to the frickin' germ, bio warfare, lab every day and brings stuff home. But anyway, Wolf of Walmart also said, just grabbed my PB a couple weeks ago, tried to use the calculator y'all have, but it was a little off. Also, my PB wasn't enough to make the calculations right, but it was close. So you had a fish that was close to 14.5 pounds then, huh, Wolf? I know you can't instantly reply, but yeah, so the calculator is accurate only for fish over 14.5 pounds. The smallest fish that I used in it was 14. The biggest fish I used in it Oh goodness, I can't remember which 20 it was, but it was a 20 that was actually certified, i.e., weighed and measured by a biologist. And so, in order for it to be accurate, it's got to be something in between those two data points. Anything over it is questionable. Anything under it is questionable. Now, when Oliver gave me the length and girth of his 17.4, and I plugged it in, the calculator actually predicted that it weighed 17.9 pounds, which was a half a pound more than what it actually did weigh, which statistically is pretty damn close. So,
South Jersey kind of clarified his statement earlier. He was talking apparently about the comments that viewers might make more comments to help drive the algorithm. Um,
oh,
and I
got
don't
you.
know what the usual ratio is of
Yeah.
viewers to commenters, but I gotta believe we're pretty good in that area because
Uh,
y'all have been amazingly dedicated. Um,
yeah, I mean, we get what, at least 40, and a lot of times we're pushing 80 comments on every single video. I mean, it amazes me how much you guys are helping us out with those comments. And
and we've gotten to
I
know
just
some
like
of
to,
you guys,
yeah, and I just like to BS about fishing anyway. So to me, it's just a big
and I
BS
just like to
mastermind.
BS about Terry.
Of course.
Have you noticed? Has
Uh,
anybody noticed that when I comment, I'm not using the Big Bass podcast logo because I'm not allowed to use it.
God.
I don't have access,
Uh,
so I have to
yeah.
I have to just comment as Ken.
Mm.
But that's okay. I don't weep over that too much. Well, has anybody got any more questions for us? We don't want to go all night. If okay, so Wolf says he had a 9 1/4, and I guess 24 and a half is the length. Um, and he said the calculator said, is it 9.8 or 9.5? Yeah, Wolf, obviously, and you pointed this out here. But you're absolutely right. If the calculator goes high, that's your official weight. Everybody knows that.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's the great thing about the Big Bass Podcast calculator is because it is designed for fish weighing 14 and a half pounds or more. It's going to come out high for
Smaller
a
fish.
lot of fish. Yeah. So you want to use that. Or you could use the John Fox scale, which basically is double the actual weight. Or the George Perry scale, which completely fabricates everything, and it's probably more than 5 times the weight. That's the
um,
Perry system.
Eric Alstrom has a question. Big Bass Podcast calculator for smallmouth, northern fish versus southern
Ooh,
fish. I have
ooh.
actually started to collect some data to do that. Now, in order to smallmouth are a different beast. Um, if you catch a fish that's generally over 4 pounds, it is going to have the same stature all the way up until 8 pounds. Um, they're just built that way. They grow more symmetrical than a largemouth does. Whereas a largemouth gets to 13 and it quits growing this way and it starts growing that way. Whereas a smallmouth seems to grow proportionately in length and girth. The problem with smallmouth is actually finding enough fish for a sample to do the statistics. And when I did the Big Bass podcast calculator about in 2004, I used 67 fish over 14 pounds. And those were all documented fish. Um, I would probably want to get a minimum of that for a smallmouth calculator, and as many as I can. But the problem is finding data on smallmouth that has been recorded by a biologist. And I can't put that together until I find that data. Yeah, like I said, I started accumulating data before we came up with this podcast, with the intent of making a smallmouth calculator.
Ken's disdain for California. Come on, Wolf. Let's see here. There's a great one in here from Mike Davis. Can you pull that one up about Danny Cadota, Nathan?
Yep.
And read it for us.
Any plans to have Danny Cadota as a guest on the show?
Absolutely. For those of you who are not familiar with Dan Cadota, he was a longtime saltwater captain and an absolute expert at deep water double anchoring, real precision anchoring and good use of electronics out in California in the 70s and 80s. And he decided to try his hand at the record chase for a while and did really well. But not only did he do really well, I think his personal best was a 19.04 fish. Not only did he do really well, he also trained or coached a lot of people, including Bob Krupe, to do what he was doing. And it certainly enabled Krupe to catch a bunch of giant fish, including a 22.01. And there's Bob Krupe's jacket, which Terry stole from him while he was trying to have breakfast at a Waffle House.
No. Yeah, that's Krupe's jacket.
Terry did not steal it. I want to throw a little something out there for the folks who have been kind enough to hang with us and are obviously interested in the George Perry show. Here's the picture I've been talking about. This is a picture from 1934. And I got this picture from the Heinzerling family that owned and ran Creek Chub Bait Company for so many years, including in the 1930s. And there is David Shong talking about
the box that fish
the box,
is
yeah.
on.
So anyway, on the back of this is George Perry's handwriting, verified by George Perry's son. And the fish in this picture, George Perry's squatting well behind the tackle box. He's probably got a rod and reel that he won after winning the 1932 Field and Stream Big Fish Contest with his world record largemouth. And that fish sitting on the tackle box, he claims in his note on the back of the picture, to weigh 13 pounds, 14 ounces. And it won the Big Fish Contest of Field and Stream in 1934. So he won a whole other prize package in 1934. The problem is, Terry Battisti, if that is your real name, that tackle box is only 21 inches long. And as you can see, the fish ain't even as long as the tackle box, because I've got one of those tackle boxes. So the fish is about 18 inches long, and Perry's claiming it weighs 13 pounds, 14 ounces. So what we know, no, Tim, you're way generous. That is a 3-pound fish. That's not an 8 or 9 pound fish. That's a 3-pound fish.
Yeah,
that's a fish that measures.
It's a 315. It's not a 1315.
Perry's a fraud. He's an absolute fraud. And
Yeah,
that's just one piece of evidence that I have against Mr. Perry. That and the Latin legal doctrine, false est unius, false exclusivius, or something like that. It means false in one, false in all. It means if you're a liar, we know you're a liar. We can't trust anything you say. We were laughing.
Latin is what the Illuminati speaks, Ken.
There you go. Hey, man. Micropterus nigricantus, okay? Okay?
Oh, my gosh. Lure Lab. That's worth the price of admission right there.
I don't know what the Illuminati is.
You,
I
you are the Illuminati.
I I know tragically little, and I have the test scores to prove it. But I do take bass
Run an
fishing
ad.
seriously. I take it seriously, and I take big bass seriously, and I take all of bass fishing seriously, and I love it. Um, Kyle Norris has a brilliant plan for us, Terry.
Yeah, run an ad
Run
during
an
the
ad
Super
during the
Bowl.
Super Bowl.
Kyle, the problem obviously, and you should know this, you should have thought of this, is that the Super Bowl is not until February, and we need to get the numbers up before that.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Otherwise, Kyle, you're all over it, my friend. I love the plan. I truly love the plan. That is a great idea. Okay, Nathan had a good idea, Terry. We're gonna do some rapid fire here, and then close
Yep.
this sucker out.
All right, sounds good.
Eric Alstrom asks, what will be the big bass in the Open in Florida this week?
Excellent
Go
question.
ahead, Ken.
Harris chain.
Yep.
And the Harris chain is not known for as many big fish as the Kissimmee chain, but there should be something cracking 10. Although fall is very tough in Florida, like it is most places, I'll say 10 and a quarter is big fish,
I'm gonna say 9 3/4.
just to be contrary.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What else we got, Nathan Benson?
Now, this may be tough for rapid fire, but he's asking if you've been fishing lately and talking about the bite heating up in Florida.
I'll jump in here. I have been fishing one time basically since I cast. I grabbed a couple of rods and a couple of baits and walked out of the house down to some golf course ponds near me, and I caught 3 or 4. One rod I wanted to try out was a gift to me from the great Lee Sisson, the guy who designed all of Bagley's great baits of the 70s and 80s, and it was a treasure that he gave me, this fishing rod, and built it and put my name on it and said, from your friend Lee Sisson. And I mean, that hit me. That was awesome. And Terry, I couldn't decide whether to just hang that rod on the wall or go out and try it. And I had to go out and try it. I caught a fish on it, and now maybe I'll retire it. I'm not sure.
I think you should retire it at my house. Anyway, to answer Mullet Fingers' question from my end, I have been fishing once since I cast. It was a 2-day trip in Florida right after I cast. And other than that, I have been on the road and busy with my kid and doing other crap. No, I have not really been fishing.
What else we got, Natty?
Kyle and Brown Bait Company have both asked about Big Bass Podcast merchandise.
I have the only Big Bass Podcast hats in existence.
And he says plural hats.
I have 3.
Can't give one to either of us. Yeah, we're gonna have to. I don't know what we're gonna do about hats.
Well, our original plan, Terry, was once we cracked the 10,000 subscriber mark on YouTube,
Yeah.
we were going to start some merchandise. We thought maybe then we would hit a threshold where there would be some significant interest in merchandise. We have not, come close to that. We're not even at 1,500. So we haven't launched the merch yet. I just ordered these off Amazon. There are no
Yeah.
Big Bass Podcast caps with the logo. There is just this. I've got a blue one, a red one, and a white one.
So Rock and Shoal Fantasy need to get you guys hooked up. Do they? So Jr. Do they have hats that we can possibly get for a price to where we're not going to have to sell them? Because that hat that Ken's wearing, I mean, that hat costs $35, Ken.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't. I mean, I there's no way in hell I could buy a hat for $35 and sell it for $45 to. I mean,
that would cover postage.
Yeah, I mean it. I just. It just doesn't seem right. I mean,
Yeah, it's not financially feasible for us to be in the merch business right now. we just don't. There would not be enough demand.
Yeah.
What else we got, Natty? By the way, folks, Nathan's Rasta name is Natty Ben Ben.
Brown Bait Company, Terry and Ken, I will get you all hooked up with hat people.
Thank you,
Okay.
Brendan. Like I said, though, I just don't think it's financially feasible for us right now. Um, I think maybe if you could carve us some hats, that would be good.
Reb asks, how about an interview with Paul Duclos from Santa Rosa?
That would be amazing. And both Ken and I have uh, ways of getting a hold of Paul. And what I've heard in the last 5 years is that Paul is not giving any more interviews at all.
And when Terry talks about ways, we both know a lot of people in the fishing industry, and the fishing industry is smaller than you might think. But we also have bass fishing's greatest investigator, Spooky Mike Davis, who has been watching and commenting on this program. He's also been a guest on this program, and he is in no way involved in terrorizing Pamela Dance with chickens, like
Oh my
Terry is
God.
apparently doing.
Terrorizing chickens. That reminds me of a movie that
Nathan?
you
Yep.
Oh,
you said to get.
Ben Goodman said, thank you guys for the info you have on bass fishing history.
It's
It's
insane.
insane. Hope you can do a show on the Illinois state record.
Oh yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you. And second of all, if you like what we're doing with regard to history, I would absolutely encourage you to check out bass-archives.com, because Terry does an amazing job of accumulating the history of the sport there. And and frankly, now that we are going to be cutting back on how many episodes of the Big Bass Podcast we do, hopefully it's going to allow Terry to get his own podcast rolling on that platform.
But he wants to talk about the Illinois record.
Yeah, Illinois record. You know what? I've been doing some digging in that, and
Yeah.
there are issues and challenges about that record, and that has slowed me down and caused us to pivot and do some other shows in the meantime. But yeah, Illinois will not be far down the line, because we look at the metrics quite often on the Big Bass Podcast to try to figure out where our listeners are and what they might be interested in. And got a big following, or a relatively big chunk of our following is in California, but there's also a lot of folks in the Midwest, and
Yeah.
and frankly, not as many in the South as I was anticipating. Come on, Southerners!
The
I
the
I am one of you.
the readers from Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa. I mean, it just blows us away how many people are there that are watching. It's really cool.
And I am
Um,
making a note right now to get the Illinois show rolling soon.
Wolf of Walmart. Or okay, have you done a show on Doug Hannon? No, we have not. We have
We
not.
we have not done a show on Doug, and I knew Doug. I knew Doug a little bit. Very interesting character, very bright guy, fascinating personality. Uh, he built his reputation on Big Bass. He built his reputation having guys like W. Horace Carter and some others writing stories with him about Big Bass. Tim Tucker, John Phillips, and Doug was also a board member of the Big Bass Record Club, and I was involved with that a little bit. That was more than about 25 years ago now. Great character, very innovative guy. One of these days we'll have to do something on Doug, because he was definitely a major, very impactful on the sport.
Yeah.
Nathan?
Do you think spotted bass will eventually eliminate pure smallies from a lot of fisheries? I hear spots, meanmouth are taking over in a lot of places that used to be top smallie lakes.
Possible. Um, I mean, they spawn at the same depth. They spawn, which means they spawn at the same time. Um, yeah, it's hard to say. Um, I don't know.
About
I
20.
I was just going to say I think any fishery looking to put spots in a lake or a reservoir at this point in time, if they don't know uh, that the only fish that should be in there then is spots, then they're gonna, because spots will just, they'll either make a fishery good, i.e. Bullard's Bar, where that's the only type of bass that they have in that lake, or if they put them in a lake that's got largemouth or smallmouth, then it's going to ruin both those fisheries, except for
It,
Paris.
it's a great question for a Stephen Barden or a Gene
Yeah.
Gilliland, a top biologist like that. I will say only that about 25 years ago, I almost did a story for Bassmaster Magazine called The Spotification of America. And the premise of the story, which was backed up by some biologists that I did talk to, was that because our reservoirs were getting older, because the cover in them was diminishing, and because they were becoming less fertile, spots were taken over. You'd see them coming down the Chattahoochee and displacing largemouth in a lot of situations because the largemouths are spawning shallower and easier to catch at that time. Um, so a great question, but I'm afraid I'm not qualified to answer it. But I do love spotted bass, and if they would just jump, they might make us forget smallmouths and largemouths.
Ken Brown Bait Company asked earlier, and I answered this for him. He's asking how he can get the physical Fish Insider magazine. You can go to fishinsider.com to subscribe, but when is the,
Wait a
maybe he's
minute.
really asking when the first issue is coming out.
Well, the first issue will be out pretty soon, but Fish Insider is, and Brennan, you're certainly more than qualified. It's a trade publication. It's not a how to, where to kind of magazine about fishing. It's more about the trade and the industry and the business of fishing. And Brennan, you're in the business of fishing because of
I mean,
Brown Bait Company.
I I'm a little bit taken aback by this question by a sub 21-year-old who says that he does not like reading off of his phone. He wants to have paper in his hand. Wait, is he like, are you really a 60-year-old man trapped in a sub drinking age kid?
When are you when is the younger generation, which is almost everybody for me at this point, but when is the
Yeah.
younger generation going to stop calling it a phone, because that's about the least thing younger people use it for.
Oh, God. Yep.
But yeah, folks, Brendan, that's the guy who made these swim baits that Terry and I were showing you. There's one. There it is. When's the last time you saw a June bug wake bait? Huh? Huh? Brendan, text me the size hooks I need to put on this sucker. I've forgotten what you
All
told me.
right. William Pruitt. Florida has no smallmouth. The best state is the one that scores the highest when you add both state records together.
Well, well, come on, William.
So
That
that would
that
be
puts
that would be California.
Yeah, California is head and shoulders above everybody at that point, because to your point, Florida has no spot, has no large mouths and no appreciable spots. Um, you're also so California is head and shoulders above everybody. Alabama's going to do very nicely. Georgia's going to do very nicely. Um, but a state that's going to show out way better than it deserves is a state like Massachusetts, which has a 15.8 as a largemouth record. I think what makes a state's bass fishing great is that you have a chance to catch a fish that weighs half of your state record. I think any fish weighing half of your state record is a big fish. Doctor?
I mean, yeah, I definitely agree. Even catching a fish that's like, if you go to Michigan or you go to Minnesota or Wisconsin, you catch a 6 pound fish and you can go up there and sometimes you can weigh a 25, 27 pound bag. I mean, that's remarkable. That's a remarkable weight for a tournament in Florida, for crying out loud.
Yeah, you can
You
go a
know?
lot of places like up north where they have a lot of quality smallmouths, like a New York or a Michigan or some of the boundary waters. and you can tear up the smallmouth because they don't get a lot of pressure, and they're just not as difficult to catch maybe as a largemouth, or especially maybe a Florida largemouth.
What else we got?
Ryan's asking, Ken, are you going to Pittman Creek?
Ryan, I saw your question earlier and I meant to answer it then. Yes, I will see you at the Pittman Creek show. I will be arriving on Saturday, October 14th. And we'll probably, if I don't see you that day, I'll try to make it by and say hello during setup, but I think I'm coming in kind of late. I will certainly see you on the 15th and the 16th. I'm looking forward to that. Always a good time at the Pittman Creek Wholesale Show.
What's the rarest crankbait you both own?
Oh God.
Ah.
Contemporary or the 1920s, because I don't have much of the 1920s stuff. I don't know.
This is fairly rare. It's not extremely rare by any means. This is a Mike E-Step Big E crankbait in a brown trout pattern. What makes this crankbait, I don't know, rare and meaningful to me is not just that it's an E-Step Big E crankbait. And it has his name
He signed every one of them
right there. Can you
Yep.
see it? And it's cracked, and it's the worse for wear. But Tim Tucker, the great bass fishing writer, gave me this bait. And I got to believe there are not a lot of E-Step baits out there relative to the mass production lures. I'm not saying there are not a lot. He made thousands of baits, sold thousands of baits. But when you compare them to a production run plastic Cordell Big O, there are not a lot of these. Second, there are not a lot of these in brown trout. That could not have been a big seller for him. But third, my friend Tim Tucker gave it to me. And that makes it a one of a kind. So, and I also have a box full, or nearly full, before Battisti rated it, of Ed Chambers
One
crankbaits.
day. One day. I don't. So I never got into collecting. My deal was always I bought what I fished, and so my collection is full of a bunch of stuff that I fished. But I do have here. This is only part of them. Some original Balsa Pros. These go for anywhere from $100 to $200 on eBay now, and they're not old. I mean, this is mid to late '90s vintage. They won 4 U.S. Opens. By the way, the U.S. Open is being held this weekend on Lake Mojave for the second time. And so that's just something that I can grab, right close to me that I have that they're rare. So then I've got easy a half a dozen or more.
Yeah, guys, this bait is probably this is early 70s bait. I've got a Castaic trout. A lot of people have an original Castaic trout. I've got a Roman mother. The Castaic trout and the Roman mother and this E-Step bait, they will never get wet. The Chambers baits will never get wet. Not so much because of what they are, but because of where I got them. Ed Chambers himself gave me the Chambers baits. Tim Tucker gave me that bait. David Swinseed, a friend of mine, gave me the Roman mother. So that means more to me than what they are. I gave away a bait that means a great deal to me just last week, because I'm getting to the age now where I realize the odds are not good for me to take all this stuff with me, and it means more to me in some cases to give it away to somebody I care about. I've given Terry some things.
Yeah. Someone just asked about a balsa bull. I actually, with Buka, so I've known Buka for 25 years. The text on the back I wrote. So, and not only that, but I have X-ray generators at my disposal at work, and I actually X-rayed the Balsa Pro and figured out the weight system so Mike could make that.
That sounds like cheating.
That was cheating, yeah. The only way to cheat.
It's high-tech cheating.
Yeah.
Nathan, we got a question from Brendan Brown. Whoops.
Oh, sorry. Let's do this one first. Chris Flay, you have to put Billy Westmoreland in the Big Bass Hall of Fame.
Well, hands down,
God,
yeah, because he's probably the only guy who ever caught a largemouth and a smallmouth over 10 pounds. He caught two smallmouth over 10
Two
pounds.
smallies over 10.
And yeah, and multiple largemouths over 10. So Westmoreland, Westmoreland would have an argument to be the first guy inducted into a Big Bass Hall of Fame. I think that puts him on a short list. He would certainly be an inaugural inductee. We got to get to work on that, Nathan, Terry. We got to get to work on a Big Bass Hall of Fame.
That was Tim Maynard that thought about that, right? Or was it, who was it?
I think it was Lure Lab.
Lure Lab. That was Lure Lab.
Lure Lab. Okay, cool. All right.
Okay, Lure Lab, you are now on the official board of electors to decide who is in, who is out. You're not the only guy.
Exactly.
Terry and I and Nathan are on there too, but maybe a few others. But we got to get Spooky Mike Davis on there. We'll have a panel, an impressive panel.
All right, here's the Brown Bait Company question. If you guys do a series on the world record parryfish, do you think the IGFA will reinvestigate it and name a new world record?
That's a great question, Brendan. Why are you one step ahead of us? Why is that? What is that about? That's actually something
never
Terry
happened. That's never happened.
Yeah, I actually, I'm sorry to tell you, Brendan. Most people are 3 steps ahead of us, so you should be a little worried that you're only 1. But no, that is actually something Terry and Nathan and I have discussed, and I don't know if they share my passion for this, but I will say that after we do a Perry series, I want to petition IGFA to have the Perry record stricken. That is a goal of mine. I won't be happy about it until that record is stricken.
Yep.
Nathan, we need to close this thing out here eventually. We're rolling in on, we're at 2:45 right now, and we've lost a lot of audience. We got 60 people watching, and we appreciate every one of you folks for doing that.
Keith says, isn't California the big bass capital, followed by Texas, then Florida?
Well, yes, California, I'm sorry to say, is the big bass capital, but Texas has no such claim. Florida, I think, is easily number 2. The other thing that Florida has going for it is that all these big fish that you're seeing come out of California or Texas or Arizona or Mississippi or Louisiana or Alabama or anywhere else, if they're largemouths and they weigh over, say, 12 or 14 pounds, those fish have Florida genetics in them. Those fish ultimately are the progeny of bass born and raised in Florida. And that is why the American Fisheries Society, as recently as just a few weeks ago, decided, that Florida bass is kind of where it all started, and we're going to call that fish Micropterus salamoides, and we're going to rename all the others. Terry, notice how I didn't say anything bad about Texas, because everybody thinks I hate Texas even more than I really do.
Yes, you did really well there, Ken. You get a star.
You spoke Latin again and just cemented the Illuminati rumors.
What else do we got?
Another good one from Brendan. I wonder if the reason why so many people have caught big fish on topwater is because the line is harder to see.
I don't know. I mean, when I'm throwing top water, I'm usually using 20 mono, or yeah, the 20 mono. Um, yeah, I don't know.
I would say that a lot of these big fish that are coming on topwater baits are coming at night when line visibility is probably not a big deal anyway. A, because the light is not as good. B, because when you're fishing a topwater bait, quite often, especially if it's a moving topwater bait, the line is not touching the surface of the water. Um, I think a lot of these fish are caught on topwater baits because guys are typically using heavier line than they are for other applications. I think a lot of these fish are coming on topwater baits because when you hook a fish on topwater, it is not necessarily in heavy cover. Whereas if you hook a fish 10, 12, 15 feet deep, he may be in the middle of a brush pile or near some rocky substrate or a bridge piling or something like that, or a boat dock. So I think all these things uh, play into it. And I think also that people probably fish top water more than we realize.
Um, Jeffrey from Crazy Bass Fisher and the hookup tackle would be cool guess.
I don't know Jeffrey from Crazy Bass Fisher. Terry, do you know him?
Yeah, he's a kid that throws big baits in Arizona. That could be, and he's caught some good fish. He's got a good YouTube channel. He would be a good candidate to get on. Someone else actually suggested that we have Mike Buka on, and it would be great. I
Absolutely.
mean, Buka and I have been friends, like I said a few minutes ago, for 25 years. We met on the bass fishing homepage in 1995 or 96. Um,
One of
and
the
we've been
old school
close ever
message
since.
boards for those of you who are
Yeah.
young.
The problem with having Buka on is that he's deaf. He reads lips, and it's really difficult for him to do a platform like this. I'd have to shave for one. Um, but I'd love to have Mike on. Mike's a dear friend of mine, and he would be great. And so, jeez.
Spooky Mike is trying really hard to work his way off of the voting panel for the Big Bass Hall of Fame.
No, he's trying to work his way onto the show and get rid of my sphincter. That's what he's trying to do. I mean, holy mackerel! What kind of respect?
You might
No,
want to be
man.
nicer to him because he might be the only
He
one who
needs to
can
be
save you.
nice to
He
his
might be
elders
the
for crying
he
out
might
loud.
he might be the only one who can save you from the wrath of Pamela Dance.
This may be a Terry question. He's asking about old
Yes.
VHS tapes that were lake specific in SoCal.
Oh, Dan Warney. Dan Warney is the guy that produced those. There was a Don Iovino doodling one. There was a Dick Trask split shotting one. Um, I think that's what Joseph is talking about.
I have them
Or
all. I have every single one of them.
that's that's cool. I've got maybe two or three of them. And then, but there was also the Big Bass Posse, and somebody
Check.
got that one too. Um, and so that was put out by Matt Newman and the two brothers. Someone just mentioned their names. Justin Kerr, uh, you know, just those guys that were wrecking casitas back in the day. So I don't, no, but yeah, I remember all those videos. They were phenomenal. You could
There's
wear
some
them out real
cool
quick.
not in that same group exactly, but there's some cool Bobby Barrack frog videos from roughly that same era
Yeah,
that were good.
yep, yep.
Anyway, um, what do you think, Natty? Are we about to wrap this thing up? What do you think?
Oh, we're at almost 3 hours. I mean, we haven't got to all the questions, but we've gotten to a lot of them.
Cool.
You're
All
keeping an
Bailey,
eye
yeah.
on that
The
stuff,
Bailey
and
brothers.
and you kind of know where we're at. So if you think it's time to wrap this one up, we can do it. We're going to
I
let
think
you be
so.
the bad guy here.
Yeah, and one of our suggestions was to do more live sessions. I like these live sessions. If you guys like it, I mean, it's just us sitting here BSing about fishing. I mean, it's fun. So maybe we do some more.
It is
of these rather
fun, and
than-
I appreciate everybody hanging in there with us. I think these live shows are even better when we have a guest. We've had a lot of fun with our guests, especially guys like Jim Brown and Stephen Barden. Um, they've been terrific guests. And when we come back, our next live show is scheduled for December 5th? Bear with me a moment.
something like that.
December 5th. And Terry, do you recall who our guest will be?
Byron Velvick.
Byron Velvick. That's right.
Yep.
So we'll definitely
Talk about hair products.
Episode with Mike Gilbert, Working Class Zero. I'm a huge Mike
would be
Gilbert
awesome.
fan. I would love to
Yeah.
do that. Mike Gilbert makes some of the finest soft plastic swim baits anywhere. If you haven't checked out his YouTube channel, Working Class Zero, I absolutely encourage you to do that. He has almost exactly 100 videos on his channel. And if you will focus on, I think he calls it theories in swim baiting. He's made 4, 5, 6 videos that he just calls theories in swim baiting, theories in something. Those are some of the finest YouTube content that I've seen anywhere on bass fishing. He's a deep and forward thinker on our sport. So kudos to Mike Gilbert.
Yep.
All right, gentlemen. I think it's time to slam the door on this live episode of the Big Bass Podcast. But before we go, please remember to subscribe, like, share, give us a comment or a review. It's a small ask, I think, but it's a really big help. Don't forget to check out our website at thebigbasspodcast.com. You will find our Big Bass Podcast calculator, created by none other than Dr. Terry J. Battisti. And you'll also find our listings of record bass plus supplementary material in the episode. It's a work in progress, but if you like the show, we think you'll like thebigbasspodcast.com. If you want to contact us, our email addresses are ken@thebigbasspodcast.com, terry@thebigbasspodcast.com, and nathan@thebigbasspodcast.com. My name is Ken Duke, and on behalf of my partners Terry Battisti and Nathan Benson, thank you, really, truly, thank you for joining us. Next week, actually 2 weeks from now, we're going to have a new show about another big bass with a story that you will not and cannot find anywhere else. And remember, Terry,
Size matters. Thanks, everybody.